very clear idea of how this whole series is gonna go by the end of this best of 3.
That we are, and it looks like it's going to be a chump block with the Reggie.
Yeah, and basically
you're gonna get out of this.
That's very difficult because the aftershock immediately comes out, and the disruption from the side of Dragon is really strong, and Rusticles does not really have anything to play this round. Yes, of course you can play the 4-drop, but it doesn't feel good because you've already attacked and you got champ blocked. And as I mentioned before, champ blocks are enough in this kind of matchup, and especially if we get to have Heimerdinger on the board, the turret generation is insane. Because Rusticles does not have overwhelm on his units, just fearsome at best.
One thing I want to point out as well is that Dragon Guy Who Died is not main decking any copies of Ruination, which means Rusticles is not going to be playing around this card. It is going to find full value unless Rusticles is like, hey, you know, there is the possibility that a Ruination was generated, but now going to need to get on board because, as we mentioned earlier in the breakdown, challengers are really the only backline access you have. Unless you create a Sunburst off of Ravoon, that'll do it as well, but that's not the most reliable strategy. But Rusticles picks it up, gets it done, finds what he needs to.
Yeah, finds it, and I think it's gonna commit it immediately on this Heimerdinger. You have to get it off the board as soon as you can, but Dragon still gonna get a little bit of value, could go for the Ravoon kill. Oh wait, no, because Ravoon got buffed, because Ravoon is 5-6, not 5-5. So you cannot go for the kill on the Ravoon, but you're gonna still get one little turret thanks to the Wild Fist.
Okay, it looks like we're going for a few more turrets than that.
Interesting, because now we are still open with the Jace play, potentially, if we want to. We have the option, of course, with the second Jace, we also have a Shock Blast at our disposal for the next turn. So yeah, I think this is gonna be our way. Like, now we have the priority, since Rusticles was the one casting the spell, and we're gonna just play the champ blockers, so we are nowhere near in danger, even if Rusticles decide to attack.
By the moon's crescent flame.
Alright, I believe that's actually just the first Nightfall of the game so far.
I cannot turn back.
Just in terms of letting you know where this Dusk Rider is currently sitting.
No, it's the
There.
second.
Oh, it is the second?
Could be the second. Oh no, because we used the 1 mana spell to get a Nightfall. So I think it was used with Daybreak.
Yeah.
To buff the thing, yeah, probably.
Yeah, it looks like we're just gonna Mystic Shot the Diana straight away.
And there is no way for Rusticles to actually save the Diana. There is no Pale Cascade, there is no buff spell, and Diana is just gonna fall. First champion out from the side of Rusticles.
Yeah, Dragon really needs to find a win con, though. It was unfortunate that the Heimer was so swiftly dealt with by this Sunburst off the Ravoon. That should have been a little bit of a bigger win on Dragon's side. And now, yeah, like, you play the Hextech Handler, you haven't played a 6+ cost spell yet. This Vengeance, you need to use it strategically. You can't really just be firing it off to proc the Hextech Handler unless you are very swiftly winning the game after, which does not appear to be the position that Dragon Guy Who Died is currently in.
And welcome Leona onto the board. Diana might have been killed, but her lover, she is here, and she immediately gets vengeance. Hello and bye-bye.
It is going to proc the Handler. It's going to let you not really do anything crazy this turn. You're 4... Oh, okay, we're actually just going after the Ravoon, saying that the Leona can stick around. What I don't want is these Infinite Day triggers. A little unfortunate that that is where the Mystic Shot went earlier on, so a little bit of a waste there, but I mean, still sitting on the double Jace, still sitting on the Ruination that is probably going to be the second spell to level this Jace, which is, you know, going to do great into this Winding Light finisher that Rusticles has, but probably not going to be able to go for anything like that for quite a while. Oh, this Hexbliterator buff actually coming in huge here, now matching the health total of the level 2 Leona.
No, it's 5 damage now, no?
No, it just got buffed to 6, didn't it?
Probably.
The stack, Leona is going to get her barrier, so The Hexbliterator not going to be useful this turn at least. But given that there is no fast or burst speed daybreak effects, you know, Rusticles can just fire off the Hexbliterator on the following turn.
Yeah, no overdevelopment from sort of Rusticles. Doesn't decide to go for the Winding Light because I think he thought, okay, this is, I can play the Winding Light, but this is not a game-winning play, so there is no reason for me to actually commit my win condition this early into the game. And Hexbliterator, as you mentioned, buffed now with the recent patch. I thought it was 5, but instead it is 6 and immediately obliterates the first Leona. But we already see second Leona is in the end of Rusticles.
Oh boy, and now you know that this Ruination is probably in your near future. But maybe getting down Jace Heimer and then having that Jace's Shock Blast on the next turn, too tempting of a end game scenario to really pass up on the side of Dragon. We'll see how it goes. You know, the challenger for the Leona is always online, so if Rusticles just gets this down this turn, you know, this is going to stun out the Jace. It makes the Heimer unplayable as Rusticles can just challenge it with an open attack, and Dragon's hand is full of slow spells.
Yeah, for those spells, we could see the acceleration gate just to get a very, very big attack from the side of Dragon, though, now. Because we have 3 units, we could get at least 2 keywords on the Handler, 1 keyword on the other 2 units, and at least 3 attacks. So maybe that's the way we're gonna go, but I think we are just content by passing. I don't think we need to overextend.
The barrier on the Leona makes it a rather unappealing option.
Yeah.
And you can always wait until after Rusticles has used that challenger next turn, because I think if Rusticles just passes here, that's going to heavily favor Dragon, who can just, you know, sort of pass back and then open with a Shock Blast on their own turn to take out the Leona. Ultimately, the pressure is still very much on Rusticles, who might just be eyeing up the best way to go for a Winding Light play on the following turn, but actually going to be Dragon just dropping down the Heimerdinger and saying, yeah, you know, next turn, if you want to open challenge with the Leona, it is what it is. It means I'm not getting Winding Lighted, but this isn't going to leave either player with much if this Ruination comes down in response to the Winding Light.
No. This is very good from Dragon, because now if a Ruination comes out, Dragon is going to have 2 8-drops to play after the Ruination.
I'm assuming this Heimer is dying on the open attack.
The thing is, Dragon is saying basically, okay, if he opens attack, okay, I'm fine with Heimer dying, because then I can do everything, I can do stuff next turn. But if he doesn't open, and if he decides to develop and overdevelop the Winding Light, I'm absolutely fine into playing the Ruination.
Do you just Ruinate now?
You see the opponent with 4 cards, one might be, okay, this doesn't leave Ruination up, 7 mana left.
My thinking was like, yeah, my opponent will have 9 mana and 4 cards. I will also have 2 8/8s, and I do not think they are getting through 2 8/8s with, you know, a 3-card hand, because you are aware of the Duskcuddle Dust. But instead, we're gonna pop the barrier on Leona as well as take out this Dusk Rider. I think that Dragon's board is going to be beefy enough that this Winding Light isn't going to be lethal here, especially with the Handler coming down.
Let's see, because we have no, because we have the Dusk. We have the Onto Dusk. It's +1, it's +2/+1, and overwhelm again to everything. This might just be lethal now. This might just be lethal.
Leona can challenge the Spiderling. That's looking like about 7 damage, so only 6 more has to go through. Everything's gonna have about 7 attack, 6 attack. Dragon's only got, you know, all these different 4 and a 5 health unit. I think it's gonna be just enough if Rusticles goes for it, and they don't have to line it up immediately. This is a burst speed spell. They can wait until they're in combat, and Dragon has used the last of their resources. But 4 mana at fast speed from a Jace Heimer, you're really not expecting much here.
No, 4 mana are too little, and there is no spell left that can actually make Dragon stay alive. Dragon was too eager to make the value play and wasn't thinking far enough into the future, because this is gonna be the lethal damage from from Rusticles in a matchup that we thought it was very disadvantaged for them.
Yeah, in all fairness, it is.
Yeah,
Dragon
I mean, it
just
is, but
it's weird, right? Because the play that we are critical of is Dragon not using the randomly generated ruination. So it's like, yeah, you know, you didn't use your randomly generated card properly. It's not something. Oh my gosh, and we get the second Unto Dusk off the top
no.
just to really drive things home and be a win for Rusticles. But you know, we weren't feeling very confident in either of Rusticles' deck. There is still a lot of potential for Dragon to turn this around and take a 2-0 victory over that Varus Udyr. But only time will tell. You know, I'm really not sure if Dragon just completely forgot about the existence of Winding Light, right? Because that's really the only explanation there that you would go for something like that. But the Ruination was just so juicy with the 2 T hexes that you would have in your opponent's 3-card hand. You're just so much taller than they are at that point, and the Shock Blast was weird. And maybe like I can see defensible lines of the Shock Blast, but taking the barrier off the Leona is just so questionable.
But then again, you said, okay, we can't criticize that much because it was a randomly generated ruination. Yes, but you generated it like voluntarily by playing
Oh no,
Reggie.
I was
It's
using
not
that
like,
as a segue to
oh,
also dunk on
okay.
the Shock Blast play.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
think Shock Blast is a defensible line. I don't think Dragon played that one right either.
Okay. I agree. I absolutely agree. But we're gonna see this Heimerdinger Jace deck again, this time against Varus Udyr. And because it's a Varus Udyr, I think we have to give the edge to Dragon. But once more, we don't know.
Yeah,
And
we'll
I'm
see
really
how it
curious
goes
to see
because
what this deck from Rustical does.
there's not as much random generation out of Rusticles here, which means that the Heimer is actually safe to come down. We're not going to get a randomly generated Sunburst too. And that's what's kind of funny about the last game, right? Is like Dragon got the blowout Ruination and fumbled it, while Rusticles got the blowout Sunburst and took beautiful advantage with it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That was a very good advantage. I mean, again, Ravun could have generated tons of more cards, but gave them the exact card they needed. But of course, using it is a whole different matter.
Yeah, but right now, Rusticles, you know, still a few turns to draw into what they need to, right? As long as you can find some of these cards on curve, it's all going to work out. But for the time being, nothing to really contest the Flash of Brilliance Heimerdinger combo coming in just a few turns out of Dragon. This Hexbliterator, though, is interesting to me. I'm not sure that you can get it to find the value you need in this matchup, just because there are so many different health buffs onto these 4 health champions in Udyr and Varus. And, you know, at the moment, we do have a Troll Chant and a Fury to protect against it, or just the raw Fury off the 3 Sisters. I'm really not sure if this is actually something that's going to take something out.
Rustical apparently has gone for another predicting to predict to now play 2-drop into 1-drop and have a very big attack potentially coming down. 5 damage could be the name of this turn for Rusticles, and instead just going for the strike with an Overwhelm Taff unit that's of course unblockable from the Dragon.
And I believe this is the 3rd cultist. Will this fetch us our Varus, or does Varus only count spells?
I don't think we're gonna fetch Varus just because we are just gonna get Varus by playing more cultists.
No, I meant wasn't that? I thought that was the 3rd cultist.
Oh yeah, it is. It is.
Then where's our Varus?
I don't know.
Is he only spells?
No. Should be cultist. Should be 4. Isn't it 4?
No,
I
it's
have to
definitely
check
3.
again.
But
No,
I
it should be
believe
3.
that we
No,
counted
it's 3.
wrong.
Probably. I mean,
But
we
meanwhile,
used
on the side of Dragon, you know, like we had mentioned, things looking very good. This is the Heimer turn. Udyr can come down, but honestly, you could just Hexbliterator this if you really want to for 3 mana. There's nothing Rustical is going to be able to do to defend against that.
And in fact, it's coming immediately. First 6 mana spell for the Jace level up condition. 1 out of 2 already. The Udyr is gonna be obliterated from the board.
And that's what you need to do, right? Is find these small windows where this can work out. You know, if there was even 1 more mana, Rusticles would have had the ability to at least fight against the Hexbliterator. Would have lost it in the end of the Mystic Shot, but, you know, at least would have been able to get a few more resources out of Dragon's hand. We do have an update from the other side. Vengevine has fallen 0-2 to Vinicius.
GG for Vinicius. GG for Vinicius. Vengevine, we know, pretty strong player overall, but in this matchup, maybe didn't have the best meta read. And actually, Dragon here find a very big punish onto Rusticles. The Udyr stance committed, immediately answered by the Mystic Shot, and suddenly we do not have any more overwhelming threat on the side of Rusticles.
No, and this is sort of an awkward hand, right? You can play the Unending Wave to try and tutor out a Varus, but you're likely just going to lose whatever 2 cards you draw. You need just a little bit more mana. Rusticles kind of just has to take the float here, which is not what you want to deal up against a Heimerdinger turn.
Especially since we have 2 production surges on the side of Dragon, we can go, as you mentioned multiple times, with the Flash of Brilliance play, and then either just play the Progress Day or play the Production Surge to have a bigger and better board and level up both of our champions at the same time. This is looking very insane from the side of Dragon.
Oh my gosh, Dragon, how do you keep getting these ruinations?
This is the karma. This is the karma. I know.
Alright, and it is going to be a progress day to level up the Jace, get this 8/8 immediately down to block against the Heimerdinger, not wanting to wait out a production surge and maybe we low roll and we don't get anything that can actually kill the Udyr. Actually going to overdraw there as well.
I don't think he cared that much. Maybe Dragon didn't count the T-Hex that would be generated.
Maybe. Rusticles has the option to offer Udyr in exchange for Jace here, and is going to sort of offer that up to Dragon as well, who, yeah, just going to take the damage. Knows that there's not really any reach in Rusticles' deck. And now we're going to have a fearsome T-Hex as well.
Fearsome T-Hex, we can go, and next turn we can play the Acceleration Gate to give not only Fearsome, but also Quick Attack plus 1 more keyword to the T-Hex and everything else on the board. And this is looking to be really insane from the side of Dragon. Meanwhile, Rusticles has to play the Ram stance to avoid being burned down next turn and to get rid of 2 of Dragon's turrets.
I think this is still lethal, right? The Hex Gate at the very least is going to create 14 elusive damage that Rusticles has to deal with outside of everything on board, which at the moment includes something to challenge the Udyr out of the way and then 2 fearsome units.
Replicating the power.
All right, let's see what
here it comes.
what the keywords roll for us, but I'm not sure it matters at all. I think there's just damage here with the turrets.
Yeah, there is too much damage. We have 1 freeze at our disposals. We have also, but we haven't equipped anything yet, so Unforgiving Cold is not gonna be active from the side of Rusticles, and this is a very big brick from the side of Udyr Varus, and in this first match is not showing up.
No, and now Spell Shields coming down onto the MK6s as well. There's no way around this, right? This is just, you challenge out the Udyr, there's nothing to stop this 5/2 Spell Shield, as well as the 7/2 Spell Shields. Forget the 7 attack, Heimerdinger coming in at you as well. It's really the only thing you can block, and that is going to be just lethal damage coming out of Dragon. We're going to a game 3.
We are indeed, and in this game 3, man, we're gonna see Nora Veigar against, again, Udyr Varus. That's gonna be a great matchup to see, because I think Nora Veigar has maybe a little less of ways to actually get in touch and get rid of the units from the side of Rusticles. But if we can develop immediately the Veigar, that immediately switch in another direction.
Yeah, I think either opening up and developing the Veigar very early, or if you just open like Nora and a Vengeance, you know, the Nora is going to be able to build up your board for you, gum it up with all of these little things. You just hang on to that Vengeance for the first big thing with Overwhelm that threatens your life total. You shouldn't have too much issue just kind of playing a passive game against Rusticles, who really doesn't have any threats outside of the 2 champions. It looks like we are just waiting on Rusticles to lock in this block, and with Spell Shield on everything else, not enough mana to Troll Chant and Flash Freeze everything else away.
GG for game 2. This was a very fast game 2. I mean, we predicted the outcome of this game from the get-go. It wasn't, especially with the ends that the player had, it was very, very good hand with the Heimerdinger immediately there and the combo that we immediately spoke of with the Flash of Brilliance. Of course, the Ruination was the cherry on top of the cake, because if Rusticles had ever found a way to get, to protect his units against removals, to get, to live through attacks, to attack after attack, we would have had the final removal to get the better of him anyway.
All right, and here going into game number 3, we have a truly awful hand for Rusticles, the Unforgiving Cold. Really not what you're looking for in this matchup. Meanwhile, Dragon getting both champions as well as 2 Twisted Catalyzer.
Man, 2 Twisted Catalyzers. Insane power from the side of Dragon in this early game. Of course, we do not have a turn 1, but in this deck, it's not even bad to bank mana. Like, we do not have to play necessarily in curve. We can bank mana, we can develop slowly. Meanwhile, Rusticles, just 2 units in there, and at the moment, we do not see any equipments again. And equipping is a key factor in this kind of decks.
Yeah, I mean, it is just the Bone Clubs and what, Combat Cook? There's no Darken in here.
Yup. Let's check. Okay, we have the option to go for the Keeper of the Box or the Unending Wave. I don't think you ever get the Virus because, as I mentioned the last game, you should draw him by playing Cultists. So I wonder what is going to be our choice.
Well, we picked a Cultist or a Darken? I don't remember the condition to 2-1 something. Is it pick a Cultist or a Darken, or just a Darken?
We're gonna know soon enough, and it may probably is a Darken. So the Virus is in the end of Rusticle's first champion on his side. We do not see a Vengeance yet from the side of Dragon, but this is going to probably be a pretty easy Veigar development on turn 4.
Yeah.
It is Swift at that.
And the buffs back to Darkness really coming in strong here, as the Twisted Catalyzer, previously nerfed down to a 2-2, buff back up to a 3-2. You can't Troll Chant this card into not dealing damage anymore. It's gonna get through with that 1 attack, even if you Troll Chant it, buff up the power of that Darkness, and by the end of this turn, we're already gonna be looking at 5 damage Darknesses on the side of Dragon. The lucky part for Rusticles is that this deck does not run as many Darkness generators as the traditional Darkness deck. Usually no Dark Bulb Acolyte, no Senna, nothing like that. So while this first Varus is prone to dying to just a high damage Darkness, it's going to be a while before Dragon can actually find a second one, potentially.
Yeah, we could just sit on this one until we get the Varus, as you mentioned, but then we have already Desenada in the end. So if we get to the late game, we have basically a leveled up Veigar on our hands, plus a full board removal with a potentially, 9 damage Darkness, 8 damage Darkness by turn 8.
Looks like we are going to use a Troll Chant to preserve the life one of these Bakai. Now, Dragon, you got options. It is going to be the Veigar. Going to go up to 3 mana, 5 damage at the start of the next round. This is sort of Rusticle's last big turn to sort of do what they want going into their open attack here on the 5th round. And now we finally got all of our equipped stuff online as well.
Yes, but for how long? As you mentioned, this is probably the last big attack turn from the side of Rusticles. They have to find a way to push as much damage as they can.
Okay, yeah,
after
so
this
we're
turn,
gonna...
they're not going to be able to.
When you play this Cultist spell, you'll actually tutor a Varus, and that is your backline access. Is Varus's Corrupting Arrow. Does that not tutor a Varus? How many Cultists do we have to play to tutor a Varus here?
That's a pretty interesting question, honestly, because we have not seen Varus being tutored tonight, at least for now.
Yeah, no, I think Rusticles thought Varus was going to get tutored there as well, because otherwise this play doesn't make any sense.
Is this a bug? Monkeyas? Is this a bug?
Not even attacking with the 5-2 that we had buffed previous? Okay.
Yeah, this is a big attack.
I'm gonna go read Varus real quick, because apparently neither of us fully grasp
Yeah, I bet the chat is memeing. I bet the chat is memeing us right now because we didn't
That's because they
grasp
can
the
read it.
virus.
That's not fair. Where are you, Varus? Ahem.
I seem to have misplaced
You may
my
put any cultist cards into your deck during Delta. Once you have played 3+ cultist spells, draw a Varus. Okay, so
Okay,
we only
spells.
played 2 cultist spells because we've only played the 2.
Okay, true. So we just
Thing.
need one more.
Yeah, okay, so Varus is spell-based. I was right. God, Boulevard, you're such a genius. Never let anyone doubt you.
GG Boulevard. But on the end of the of Dragon, we get the last top deck. This top deck is even more insane because with stress defense, basically any chances to a swift end of the game from the virus basically come to an end, unless there is a pre-commitment of spell shield on the champion. But I guess we're gonna go immediately for a kill because we have seen it before. This is a 6 damage darkness potentially going to kill the virus right here and now. Of course, the momentous choice is gonna be played from the side of Rusticles to save his champion. And I think Varus is really close to leveling up.
Yeah, now the question is, does Dragon want to use stress defense to push this back down into a 6, knowing that there is another Varus in the hand of Rusticles? Looks like the answer is going to be no. But I don't imagine Rusticles using a preemptive spell shield next turn. Let's see what this aloof hits first, and it is going to be the second Varus.
Yeah, so second Varus is gone. We get one darkness generator for next round. So Dragon could go if Rusticles decide to develop or decide to not go for an open attack for whatever reason, let's say the top deck for instead of Rusticles, but there is the option to develop the Ishtali Sentinel.
Yeah, we'll
And
see how
Rusticles might
Rusticles
be...
wants to play this, because that 7/7 fearsome lifesteal unit does change things quite a bit.
It does indeed, it does indeed. Let's see, because Virus leveling up gets Overwhelm. And with these, it may be really close to lethal, because we have to stress defense something, and that something might actually be the 7/7, and Varus leveling up, that might spell
Oh no.
an absolutely lethal amount of damage.
Dragon commits and goes to 1, Rusticles actually just has lethal with Ram Stance.
No, the Ram says no, and instead to
Dragon
commit.
passed it.
Oh no.
There's nothing Dragon's going to be able to do about this. Rusticles can play it all out this turn. The lifesteal is never going to matter.
He doesn't know. He's unaware. He's unaware. He's clueless about the Udyr in Rustical Sand and the potential for Ram Stance.
And that is just going to be
no.
Ram Stance. Dragon not really understanding the situation that they were in. Not using the stress defense to stay above 1, thinking, yeah, this deck has no reach. I just need to worry about the Overwhelm Varus down the line. But that 1 damage from the Ram Stance is going to be all of the difference maker here, as Rusticles takes it 2-1 over Dragon.
And the underdog lineup getting its revenge because we doubted it. We actually dared to doubt Rusticle's experimentation and Rusticle's, unconventional lineup. But in the end, he was the one coming out on top against the full-on control lineup on the side of Dragon. Varus going Super Saiyan 5, shooting his arrow. It's not even gonna matter, but the level up spells the end of this game. GG for Rusticles.
You say that we came into this doubting that lineup, Zero. Does that mean that you're now a believer in this experimentation out of Rusticles? Has he totally sold you on it?
No.
Okay, I was about to say, because I certainly haven't been sold. I watched Dragon punt twice. That doesn't make the lineup great. I'm not expecting Rusticles to have the blueprint here for what we're going to see next week at the World Championship. I think Dragon took some rough losses, which by all means, now is the time to do that, right? Not to downplay the importance of the Aegis Esports League by any stretch of the imagination, but it is no World Championship, so good to get the rust out now, especially as I imagine many of these players probably, like I assume both of us did as well, took off quite a bit of time during the Seraphine patch. I think everybody was kind of, yeah, let's all take a week off, chill a little bit, get back in. So now everyone's sort of playing again for the first time, brushing the dust off. I know it's happened to me. I made some embarrassing plays on camera yesterday. So yeah, I'm willing to forgive it a little bit more than I usually would be.
Yeah, me too, honestly. I think it's better for Dragon to make the misplay here just for the karma to be benevolent on him next week into the World Qualifiers. I mean, I'm Italian, so I believe in this kind of stuff a little bit.
Oh.
I mean, it's all the tradition, the culture. So especially Broken Ball is very, doubtful of me anytime that I say it's not real and he is really a believer. But, so that's it.
All
And I
right, that
think
is
this
going to do it
series... Mhm.
for us right now, though. We are going to hop it to a little break, and we'll be back for you guys with a little bit more action down the line. Got a few more games going on for you here tonight. We will see you right after. Welcome back, everybody. I am still Boulevard. Joining me is still Zero, and we've got a few more rounds of Legends of Runeterra action to bring to you here for the remainder of the evening. We have Team Icy Gaming Shadow Isle up against, I don't remember the name of the second team. It was on screen just a little bit too long ago. My object permanence has completely kicked me out. Zero, do you remember what the other team's name is?
Yes, it's TKG, aka Trolls Karma Gaming.
There we go, Thrall's Karma Gaming. We're not going to bore you too much with the intros. We're going to hop right into the deck list that we are going to be taking a look at for this matchup. Kicking things off, we have Poro Bear and their Fizz Nami Varus. Zero, we've seen this deck a couple of times. Beautiful Gamers brought it the last time that you and I were on together. How are we feeling about this in the new meta?
I think it can be very, very good because in this new meta we've seen Piltover and Zone decks potentially like getting really, really bad into the meta, really low into the meta tier lists, if not for the more aggro style decks that we're gonna see later in the next future decks of today, Draven Jinx. But for example, these kind of decks with less removals into the game, with less access to potentially, Mystic Shots, I Note, and all those kind of removals that Seraphine brought into the game, brought into the meta with Ezreal, these kind of decks can really flourish into the meta. They do not have a lot of counters and can go under a lot of ranges because they have those that big strength that is a Nami as well. With that, and with Varus, they can be very ridiculously strong cards like Giving Cold, Unending Wave, Expense Protection, Momentous Choice. It's insane. I think this is one of the best decks that we can see today, probably.
So I have a question for you then. With this being the second elusive deck that we have in the meta, do you prefer this over the more traditional Zoe Teemo?
I don't think Zoe Team is good. Honestly, I've had this conversation with a lot of Italian players during the last week, because we were talking about the upcoming finals of our league. But when we were talking, like the thing that went out, okay, why are we playing Zoe Teemo? Okay, to burst our opponent with elusive damage. But then can't we just play Fizz Nami again? And in the end, the thing was, okay, Zoe Nami is actually faster. Aggro is a faster elusive win condition deck.
All right. Well, moving on to the next deck, I really hope it's not Zoe Teemo because that sure would be embarrassing. No, it's Draven Jinx, the other deck that I know you have, well, probably the only deck I know you have been itching to talk about this evening, Zero. Why don't you break down this new spin on an old classic for us?
I don't really think this is that much of a new spin. I mean, the only
this looks exactly the same as it did like 2 years ago.
I mean, the one card that got added actually from the very beginning of Foundations is Fallen Rider, because of course it got released alongside Scion. But everything else is exactly the same. I was watching a little bit of Fake Hero playing this deck today, and his version had Salt and Stitches, which made the deck a little bit more strong, in my opinion, a little bit more explosive with strong open attacks, for example, with access committed into Salt and Stitches, summoning more units, even more units that are buffed. Of course, the Reborn Grenadier is a 5/2 if summoned from Salt and Stitches. So I'm really excited to see this deck, but this version looks really, really classic, and I don't know if the classic is up to the standards of today.
Yeah, one of the things that we mentioned was I'm trying to remember how I even segued this, was how Udyr was always kind of like a step below Pantheon, right? The reason that Draven Jinx stopped seeing play was because, like Fallen Rider, the Scion archetype came out, and Scion Draven completely took over the Piltover and Zon Noxus sort of more aggressive lineup slot. So now that Scion has been roped back into line, I mean, obviously Jinx got a nice little buff, but is that enough to return to this over something like a more aggressive variant of the Draven Scion? Only time is going to tell. Go ahead and take a look at the head-to-head for the teams here. And once again, thank you to Runeterra AR for supplying this little in-depth deck breakdown to us. It is going to be Poro Bear up against Doug. Doug not having any of the decks that we looked at, so we are seeing their lineup for the first time. Is going to be, looks like Red Gwen, the Vayne, Piltover and Zon, Fiora Gwen, or Quinn rather, and Leona Diana.
love seeing how many 3 champion splits are there in modern Runeterra, because this was something I was really vocal about like 1 year ago, 1.5 years ago, when I was saying, okay, guys, but look, with the more and more champions added into the game, and the more and more the power level going up for the newly released champion, I think the 3 champion splits are gonna be the norm the later into the game life. And it turns out it's kind of true, because having a one-off champion allows you to be much more versatile, and to have your gameplay variants be much more useful in a tournament environment.
I think it's partially that, and there's been a huge discussion over, I would say, the last 3 or 4 months about triple champion splits versus double champion. And sometimes it's people being like, oh, I always knew that we'd eventually end up at 3 champions. This is just like how the game progresses and works out. And like, yeah, maybe it's good to have this one event here. I think they've just been printing really shitty champion spells for like 5 expansions. And if my champion has a really poor champion spell, then I really don't want to be running 3 copies of it. Because God forbid I end up with that champion and playing like 2 copies of their champion spells. There's a reason that like Vi is not very often a 3 of. I think she was one of the very early I will always be a splash type champions, because Vi's Vault Breaker is just not a card.
Yeah, also I can see here probably Zoe, because Zoe's spell is not something that you cast basically ever. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen today it cast to kill a Jinx, so I'm immediately shutting up, because
Yeah, like
maybe
you'll
we're gonna
cast
see this
them
kind of
when you
interaction.
have to, but you're not going to feel good about it. Now, Zero, before we get into the game, because it looks like the players are getting the bans here through pretty soon, which one do you want to tackle here? Do you want to talk me through this Seraphine that we seem to have slipped through the sort of deck building phase pairing with this Zoe Aphelios, or do you want to talk to me about this very nerfed Aphelios Lee Sin?
Ooh, I mean, Action Listen has been very, very heavily nerfed, as you mentioned. I don't know why Porber is bringing it. Like, do you have any insight? Like, do you have any idea? Because Action Listen, both of the champions got nerfed.
I think that obviously it was one of the best decks coming into the Seraphine Vayne meta, so you kind of
Yes.
default back onto that. And yeah, it took some nerfs, but they weren't like substantial game-breaking nerfs. It was like we slowed down the Auction Pillar a little bit, we slowed down the Lee Sin level up a little bit. I don't remember this deck as one that was particularly big on multiple copies of Ionia Tellstones, so losing that card, not the biggest deal in the world for you specifically as compared to some other decks. And then Shimon win to focus from burst, yeah, that one definitely hurt a little bit. But I definitely don't hate the idea of players, like you had mentioned earlier, using this as a testing ground and saying, hey, I know it looks bad on paper, but like, does it still just beat everything else anyway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on the other hand, Aphelios, when I was talking, especially with Ace last week, about the consequences of nerfs, it was like Aphelios, hey, that champion didn't get nerfed, didn't get buffed. It was very good overall, and just slipped off of the meta because of the back in the day, the Winding Light nerfs. And so Aphelios, we didn't see any of him anymore. But in this meta, I think it can be very, very good as a value engine for Target. And in fact, we see the deck immediately banned from the set of Duff.
Yep. So the one thing that I've been playing pretty much since the patch dropped is actually Leona Aphelios Galio. And I haven't seen anyone else playing like Demacia Leona, and I feel like with Pantheon more or less gone, there's not really anything else taking up the Demacia Targon sort of region combination. We're not seeing like Vayne Pantheon anytime soon either. So it feels pretty open, and like Aphelios does some work still. I'm a little surprised not to see it in the Shadow Isle version as well.
Yeah, really interesting to see. I think we're gonna shift more into an Aphelios style, even in the Shadow Elves version, as you mentioned, because Aphelios is just so good at doing everything. Is a jack of all trades, and kind of master of all in some sense, because it does so well what you want him to do. With Gravitum, he can stun. With Infernum, can give you the lethal that you need. Like he can even give potentially the winning light to back his overwhelm with Infernum.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little bit clunky. You have to play a lot of cards to get it, but in some situations, that's just the game-breaking play that you need. And Aphelios is good to find the right spot at the right time to play his weapons to win you the game.
And that Severum weapon is absolutely nothing to laugh at given how much aggro is back in the meta. We haven't seen it too much in the matches that we've highlighted specifically this evening, but Annie, Jhin, discard aggro, these are decks that are running around absolutely everywhere. And with Decimate coming back into the Annie Jhin decks, you know, they're making some concessions for that, right? They're not playing as many early game units. They're more willing to go into the late game. And it's in those late game scenarios that something like Severum becomes more and more of just a huge blowout card.
But we're getting into the first game of this series between Daf and Porobear, and it's gonna be from the side of Daf, the Targan Shadwell's decklist. Meanwhile, on the side of Porobear, we see the Lee Sin action immediately back into the game.
And this is good because I've been very curious about Lee Sin Akshan, and is this just a deck that people are allowed to default to, or were the nerfs too much? So at the very least, thank you, Porobear, for putting this on camera for me so I can fully form my opinion on this deck based on this singular game.
Exactly, you know, that's the best way. We don't need stats, we just need singular game.
Yeah, anytime someone's like, well, actually, it's a 55% win rate, I'm like, yeah, well, I've seen it one time, and it was a 0% win rate.
Exactly. I mean, what do you think? Like, I think the nerf, as you mentioned, from burst to focus is actually insanely like impact. It has an
I think
insane
that's the
impact
biggest
on the match.
nerf that the deck took by far.
Yeah.
I think the Akshan nerf was more or less nothing, especially when you consider like how many times you were getting off a second Warlord's Palace in these games. But now that we've kind of gotten into like weapon cycling habits.
I mean, the action nerf was a big nerf for the infinite action deck. I can tell you. I can tell you that
That's
much.
fine. I don't think anybody is upset about that.
I disagree. I think me and Morpies are pretty upset about that one. but anyway, yeah, the ability that the deck had to shuffle and to continue to cycle its card again and again and again, and have immediately like burst speed spawned blockers was insanely powerful. And now getting rid of that, it's really gonna hinder the propulsive strength of this kind of decks.
I think we're about to see an Akshan level on the following turn if we want to use the Wuju style meditate here to save this Akshan.
Yes.
Yeah, that is going to be a level up at the beginning of the next round, I believe.
Yeah, we do not only save the action, we also get a clean trade onto this Diana. So first champion dealt with from the side of Porobear against Dove. But of course, the board is still pretty big and is only going to continue to grow if we get more Solaris.
Yeah, but without a Winding Light, Doug's not really ending the game anytime soon, and this Lee Sin is getting, you know, closer and closer to the level up. That's the great thing about the Akshan level, is it does progress the Lee Sin level as well. We've got this second Wuju style meditate. We've got 2 copies of Shimon Wind potentially. Really shouldn't have any trouble getting this champion down and leveled, and then it's just a matter of finding the Absolver. And there's no large threats on Doug's side. You know, we do have quite a bit of reach here, actually. 7 damage worth of just reach in Doug's hand that I could very well see catching Porobear by surprise.
Yeah, we might actually see a kind of an effect, kind of, you know, a Ram stance effect, like quoting what happened last series between Dragon and his opponent. Because if the damage catches you by surprise, like, you might see yourself completely vulnerable to it, because if you don't think your opponent has the burn to kill you,
I do want to throw out that this is a little different though, right? Like, leaving yourself at 1 against new to your deck, like, yeah, that, you know, if you left yourself at like 3 and then there was like some other 2 damage spell that you didn't see coming, sure. But 7 damage is a lot of reach.
It is. It really is. And I mean, now, just if just one Doombeast connects, that's game over. Doombeast cannot be allowed to connect, and now Ruthless Predator is gonna be used to get a board advantage from the side of Porobear, or at least get a free trade. But Dove going for the Unspeakable Horror, not gonna go face with that one, so 1 less damage against the face of Porobear, so 6 damage of reach, now 4 of course.
As it stands though, you know, 4 damage currently lining up on this open attack.
Yeah.
Okay, Porobear, I don't know about main deck and Lucky Finds. That might be a little much.
I think it's to, Lucky Finds gives you 2 spells. So it basically some way to say, okay, it's not a big nerf on the Lee Sin. I just basically just don't care, and I get 2 spells from that. And of course, that's basically the one of the biggest arguments against the Lee Sin nerf, that it doesn't really impact that much because you have so many doubling spells, the spells that creates other spells in this deck that you don't really care about, 10, 8, or 6 in number. They basically do the same thing before you have the combo. But here, look at how much damage goes through, and this is just unsufferable. This is just not feasible for a polar bear to survive through.
Nope. And man, if that payday was that one of Ionia Telstone and we still had a health potion in it, then this was actually looking like a lethal for Poro Bear on the following turn with that Lee Sin and that Absolver returns. But with that card out of the deck, with Payday taking its place, we are not able to withstand the onslaught of Doom Beasts. And gonna go down in game number 1 there, which does mean we might get a few more eyes on this Akshan Lee Sin, a little bit more better insights to how it plays against the field. But I gotta say, that's not a good game to base it off of. That was a very atypical game from the side of Leona Diana as well. Just, firing off like 4 Doom Beast abilities. It's usually not that aggressively postured.
Yeah, plus, as you mentioned, plus we had, of course, the Onto Dusks. We could go on and on with Burn over and over again. But you have to also factor in that we could have also drawn potentially for a late game win condition the Winding Light. So it's not like our strength was over. It's not like we were completely out of fuel. We could have gone on and on in the next few turns. And unless the Akshan Lee Sin could find the immediate lethal, that could have still been a game to play.
It looks like we do have Red Gwen now queued up for Doug. Poro Bear running back that Akshan Lee.
What could you ever teach me?
I mean, we're gonna have a 2-game sample size for Akshan Lee. That's a little bit better than 1.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of it is actually just going to straight up come down to whether or not this Akshan gets quietest, and it looks like we are going to immediately offer it up to the Slaughter Dock. Well-timed emote on the side of Doug, and Poro Bear loses their signature champion.
Yeah, and not just that, they do not have any equipment at the moment. They cannot activate the Momentous Choice, they cannot activate the Momentous Choice, that's it basically now. But the second action, as a savior, comes in immediately, and Akshan is the hero of Shriva, is the hero sentinel, and when you need him the most, he shows up, and here it is.
Alright, so taking quite a bit of damage, but Poro Bear does have the Eye of the Dragon, and looks like they're going to be relying on those Dragonlings to get a little bit of the life back. No... There's no clean way to get through this turn. It looks like we're going to be casting... I mean, it might be double Shimon Wind. It might be Shimon Wind in a random... It's probably just got to be double Shimon Wind if you're looking for that Dragonling.
Yeah, I don't think there is any other way. Let's see. First Shimon Wind comes in. And Sand Disciple.
Okay, we're actually... Are we going to preemptively Momentous Choice, or do we just not care about the Dragonling? Looks like we just don't care about the Dragonling, which...
No, we don't.
Honestly, all it does is make Doug hang back the Blade Squire. But now we lose the ability to block on one of our Vestayan Disciples. We obviously don't want to lose either our Eye of the Dragon or our Akshan. But something's got to give here. There is the one recall spell in Poro Bear's hand. There's also a copy of Lee Sin that can get played. I was looking at that Palm of the Dragon, but looks like it will be Lee Sin. And still no equipment played, so this Momentous Choice will not give over Barrier.
Yeah, will not give over Barrier, but Lee Sin could be used to trade down with Gwen nonetheless, because of course you can use mono Momentous Choice potentially to trade the Gwen, but instead it's just going to be a clean block onto the Overrun unit, which is going to be entirely blocked by Lee Sin. Lee Sin going down to 1. This should not be a problem, because we have many ways next turn to make him survive, but 8 damage coming through. And Poro Bear is going really low on those Nexus HPs now.
Not just that, but you would have left your Lee Sin at 1 HP against a Katarina. And Poro Bear doesn't really have the cards in hand to fight over that Blade's Edge currently. That might turn into an issue, even if the Lee Sin doesn't end up dying for it. Just, you know, being forced to use spells awkwardly in a position where you didn't really want to previously.
I love the emote game from Daft this game, from Daft the game. This is looking insanely on point. The karma with popcorns, watching the movie of Porobear Despair. Trying to guess how to block correctly here. And maybe the action is really gonna be the sacrificial lamb here to make Lee Sin stay alive and safe and potentially like retain some hope.
But there's still no Dragonling this turn. You're down to 3 health against a Gwen that is still alive, a second Gwen in hand to try and offer up some kind of drain, plus, again, that recurring threat of the Blade's Edge in the Katarina.
Catch the wind.
Yeah, and we are gonna see a lot of Shimon wins actually, eating the board, a lot of potential cycle from the side of Porobear here, and we're gonna use the mono cast. Momentous choice to kill the Gwen. As I mentioned, this kill is just gonna go through just like that. But we have the second one in hand. We can go wide this turn.
Oh, man. Okay, actually going to go for the Katarina. I was going to say, if you play Gwen here, then Doug actually does have the possibility of playing 2 Katarinas on the following turn.
Yes. I think here he wanted to go... He went for Katarina to kill one of the dragon. You don't want to have 2 Dragonlings next turn.
And there's nothing Porobear can draw here except a momentous choice. It is going to be a Wuju style, which unfortunately buffs attack before it buffs health. Will not be able to save this eye with that singular mana point. And that's looking like... I want to say that's the Overwhelm weapon in hand of Doug. Might be Quick Attack.
Oh, I mean, I'm not at the level. I think Ice-T is at the level that he recognizes them.
Because Ice-T plays a lot of Riven.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Riven type spells.
But I'm not at that kind of
Give me a
power
hover,
level
Doug.
yet.
Alright, gonna kick things off with a stun onto the Dragonling. 4 mana left open for this Katarina. Everything able to block again on the side of Porobear, as the Vastayan Disciple that lost its ability was resummoned.
Yeah, everything really low on health too from the side of Duff, so basically nothing is gonna survive this strike, nothing is gonna help Katarina finish the game.
Okay, it is gonna be the Gwen committed, and now the Palm can only go on to either the Katarina or the Gwen.
Is this gonna be the Palm? Is it gonna come through? It's gonna be the Unworthy Soul, not the Palm coming through, because Palm wouldn't even get the full value. We have all the board.
Here's the issue Porobear is about to run into. With the mana that you have left, you only have 1 Fearsome blocker, and that's Lee Sin, and you only have 1 thing that won't take damage from the Overwhelm unit, and that is also Lee Sin.
I think you might just kill the... I think you have to kill the Gwen here, if you're Duff. I think you kill the Gwen and it's enough damage with the... It's almost enough damage with the Overwhelm, because then we can... Katarina gets recalled, next turn we play Katarina, and we have the dagger. And we have the Blade's Edge.
Yeah, this is what I was just mentioning. We actually can... we can Absolver the Dragonling into... in front of the Fearsome... Well, we can really throw anything we want in front of the Fearsome unit, because we have the Absolver. Okay, we don't have enough mana to use the second Wuju style, though.
Yeah, that
okay,
was...
there we go.
Okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah,
that was a very interesting play.
You live at 1. This Lee Sin's got to be close to the level. But you are on a very fine clock of not trying to die to these 2 Katarina daggers.
I mean, let's see. Lee Sin is 6 out of 10. Now should be at 7 out of 10 after this spell.
Currently, this is lethal with... Well, actually, you've got to level the Lee before you play the Absolver. Because you never actually leveled Akshan.
You need 3 spells. You need 3 spells And you have two Wuju style. You have Wuju style, first and second part, and then Absolver. That procs the second part. Is it lethal? It could be.
It'll be a 9 attack Lee in that case, or a 10 attack Lee actually.
Yes. So it should be lethal. Yeah, it should be lethal.
Okay, yeah.
Enter your spirit. As the dragon wills.
Okay, we're not going for the Absolver on the first part of the Absolver on the Lee Sin. We're going on the Absolver on the Dragonling. This makes sense. You just need an 8 attack Lee Sin, because this is lethal anyway. Yeah, this is exactly lethal anyway.
Yep. Alright, Poro Bear picks it back up. I mean, it looked dire there for a second, but this is what we were talking about, right? The nerf on the Lee Sin, not quite big enough. It was a little bit of a slowdown, but at the end of the day, like, Lee still gets the Absolver going, and 10 spells is not that much more than 8. And again, I think it's one of those things where it's going to hurt the consistency of the deck, and maybe that is going to be enough to take it off a lot of players' radars, because you do still need... Like, those games where you hit the 10 spells easy, yeah, sure, no big deal, but there were a lot of League games where you were just barely getting to that 8.
Yeah, especially 10 are a lot, but as we mentioned, like, there are a lot of multiplying spells in that kind of archetype that can actually help a lot the level up. But here we are with the Varus Nami feeds deck from the side of Poro Bear. Meanwhile, Dove replaying, rerunning, of course, the Red Gwen.
I gotta say, Red Gwen did well enough in previous Nami metas, and that was when Nami was, like, very good.
It was at the height of her power. Actually, she was the god of mermaids, the goddess of mermaids.
The only issue, though, of course, being that Unending Cold is pretty good against Red Gwen. Especially if you can get a couple copies of it. You can even go as far as to, like, negate an entire harrowing. Gwen really makes it easy for you by gaining the attack of whatever the hallowed thing is. So you've got the two pretty obvious targets, and nothing else is, like, significantly threatening on its own. But more than that, just the ability to kill the quick attack units by frostbiting them, the ability to block a Katarina and permanently remove it from the battlefield, something that not a lot of decks has access to, and that could play in big here.
Yeah, it could indeed. Right now, though, no unforgiving cold in the end of Poro Bear, no ways to freeze those key units, and we have the Katarina that can be played from the side of Dove. Not gonna be committed here, though, because this is interesting, though, not going immediately for the Fizz, because you're always afraid that the Fizz can have any spell to survive. But on the other
a
hand,
momentous choice here would be...
Yeah, exactly.
Not ideal. But I mean, you can fish for that with Blade's Edges off of Katarina's and not feel as bad.
And now actually we negate the whole attack from the side of Poro Bear, because he cannot attack with the Fizz because he could get blocked by the, of course, the Lies. And the 4-1 can't block because of the Spiderling. And now, as we mentioned, the Blade's Edge can fish for this Fizz.
I don't know if it fishes for the Fizz here, though. You know, your opponent does have this this one fearsome blocker that is sort of stopping you from getting in with your Elise, and it looks like we're actually just going to quietus away the equipment on it. Turn it back into a 2-1, and now Elise is a little more free to attack. We'll see what the double trouble rolls. There is a potential of a 3-attack unit here, and nothing doing.
Nothing, and we have to be really careful about what we play next, because that Vladimir follower is gonna deal 1 damage to anything we play now. To the first card we play now.
Yeah. Now the extra health on it gonna do pretty good here. Gonna be able to actually block the Spiderling for free if we want to. Might want to rearrange a couple of those blocks, Poro Bear. You're losing a unit. You don't have to here.
Yep.
I refuse to believe that this is you playing to target your Nami buffs. You don't have a Nami. Rearrange the blockers, Poro Bear.
Found some flotsam.
Okay. Thank you, Poro Bear. Saving saving the unit there, saving the rat. And Katarina immediately levels up, cost 4. Now the Blade's Edge in the end is gonna cost 0 from now on, and we're gonna be able to rally every single turn we play this card.
Yeah, and I mean, even more than the rally. Like, those 0-mana Blade's Edge do be going kind of hard.
Yeah, look at anything in the on the side of Polar Bear. Everything is 1 health. We can ping down time after time. We have also the flock if anything bigger gets played.
You know,
we have ways to control the board.
To me, this feels like a slam Eye of Nagakaboros angle. But it looks like we actually are going to go for an elusive attacker here. I actually cannot tell what that Demacia spell is. It looks like it's Tempting Prospect. It's not even a Demacia spell, probably.
Wait, why are we attacking with the 2-2? The 2-2 just gets blocked by the Katarina. And Katarina gets recalled.
Well, you don't want to run into a momentous choice and lose your Katarina, but... Pick a follower or equipment from the top 4 cards of your deck, draw it, place the rest into your deck. Okay, so that was a Demacia card, I was right, and there were just no equipments or followers in the top 4 cards of Icy Polar Bear's deck.
Yep, and here it comes. We block the 2 units. Katarina is back into our hand, fully healed. And now we can start playing the Boisterous Host. The allowed cards start coming into play. The second feeds drawn by the side of Polar Bear. That can be a pretty big deal if we get a big board. Having that rally, and of course, potentially having a second fees can be very good.
I'll see how it works out. Polar Bear finally going to fire off this Eye of Nagakaboros, see what we can find here. Really need to get a Nami going. And Fleet Admiral Shelley and Varus. Not the worst.
Not quite as good.
Not the best.
The problem with even with the Nami now is that we do not have actually spells to activate her with.
Yeah, kind of needed Nami plus maybe another Burblefish to get you the elusives, get you the spells off. We're going to go fishing for the Fizz here with the Blade's Edge, and it's going to work out this time around.
Yeah, and the power of the Katarina starting to matter here. And we actually, I cannot believe it. We get this, out of all the spells, we get the a second time.
Yeah, you got to run it back. You got to try again.
I mean, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again.
Yeah, and it did shuffle the deck as we immediately drew a Fleet Admiral Shelley right after the fact. This is not a lot of damage from Icy Polar Bear, even on the open attack. We're going to see what we can find off of Coral Creatures. It is going to be a parlay, but it's just another Blade's Edge generated by Doug. And there's no follower that's going to do anything about this. Fleet Admiral Shelley can come down, but you know, Doug has access to the Ravenous Flock as well, and is just going to immediately take aim at this Fleet Admiral.
I mean, this is really Katarina control. It's not something I would have ever thought that I would be able to see. But here it comes, actually. We are going to be able to activate Shelly. So at least the damage is going to go through, at least a little bit. Shelly's going to die, but everything is going to be buffed, the +1/+1.
So I do want to point out that Polar Bear potentially misses damage here. If you had parlayed the Katarina, that would have let you attack with your 2/4.
Yeah.
As Katarina would not be in a position to block it. But, you know, that is kind of assuming that your opponent doesn't have any other units to play, which is not an unfair assumption to make of someone who has only slammed Katarina for the last 3 or so turns in a row. But Polar Bear taking the safer route here, getting that guaranteed 1 damage, opposed to agreeing for the 2. I don't think it's going to play into this game, but...
To the point.
Ooh, again, attack from sort of Dove.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
I do not know if I like it. Yeah, I do not know if I like it because you're losing a unit that you could have buffed potentially later with Nami. Maybe you don't want to have it as a Nami target because, of course, it does not have the elusive keyword. But here, it's a lot more difficult for you if this is actually, honestly, if this is a quick attack fragment. This is an insane turn from Duff. Is this quick attack? I mean, even honestly, even if it's +2/+0.
Oh, it doesn't have to be. We've got the Hallowed buff.
So the second phase is dead. We got the Allowed buff. It's +2/+0 to our attacking unit. Varus is gonna come down.
No going.
And Katarina being played again.
Katarina over the Minotaur.
Is this gonna be the lethal damage actually? In open from the side of Power Bear. Is this enough?
I mean, you can take all of this damage. You do not have to block this Katarina. Very few hallowed units that have died. We're setting up something for a potential top deck Ravenous Flock, but it might even get to a point where you just need to glimpse beyond this Katarina to dig a little bit deeper before Poro Bear just jumps into combat.
Yeah, because this at this moment this is open attack lethal. This is absolutely lethal damage in open from
I
the
think-
side of Power Bear.
If you do glimpse this Katarina and you whiff, it is also lethal. I think the only way you live is by naturally top-decking Ravenous Flock. Or drawing a blocker here and then drawing Ravenous Flock. Vile
Vile
Feast
Feast!
is actually perfect.
Oh my god, the Vile Fist, and you can even play it next turn, you do not care. This was the
Yeah. How far is this
humongous
Varus
top
off
deck.
of? Oh, we're even going in.
Yes, because we do not fear. Like if the we can be absolutely safe into going in because Varus can't block. Of course, the Longtooth can't block, and now we are absolutely safe. But look
Oh,
at
the
this.
spell shield.
And
We play Boros.
Honestly, I forgot Ibarus was a thing.
So, oh, I'm gonna read a Boros real quick. Gonna
Yeah,
take
it
away the
can't
ability
be
to
blocked,
block
it
off
can't
of the
be
Burble
blocked.
Fish. Pushing a little bit of damage onto
Yeah.
a Boros.
Pushing a little bit of damage, of course. Ibarus is really big, but not as big as
Yeah, I
it
wish,
could be.
I really wish we had Vile Feasted the Burble Fish and played the Minotaur post-combat. Although now, you still just have lethal, right? You can just play 2 Minotaurs here.
Oh, but look at the
Oh, the
unforgiving
unending
cold.
But it doesn't matter, right? Because the Minotaurs aren't going anywhere. Until this Varus levels and you gain access to some Overwhelm, Poro Bear doesn't have a lethal threat. So, yeah, you can Unending Cold here and prevent a lot of damage, but there's still going to be 2 blockers on the side of Doug.
Yeah, there are still gonna be 2 blockers. Only one of them is ephemeral. And next turn, Katarina, of course, is gonna rally, and eventually, Poro Bear cannot block, cannot top deck Unforgiving Cold forever. Let's see if this one solves the game for them. The answer is absolutely no. And I think this is it. We can play the Minotaur if we want to, and then Katarina to rally, and that's just gonna be it. That's just gonna be game.
Yeah, we take the Fearsome. We could just play another Minotaur on Doug's side if we really want to.
Yeah, Minotaur plus Kata is literally like has no punish, and it's gonna send this series, and it's gonna be actually a 2-1 from TKG from Trolls Karma Gaming against Icy Shadow Isles. Man, this has been a series.
Unless this Varus levels here, which I do not think happens.
No. Look at the arrows.
I can't tell if the arrows are bugged or not.
Oh.
Yeah, this
Actually,
is just gonna
that's a
be.
good
There's
point.
a Boisterous Host. Here comes a Katarina. Oh, a Ruined Reckoner even.
Yeah, because it's 6 I think it's 7 damage. Either 6 or 7 damage. 6 damage.
Yeah, it's gonna be enough. You know, not gonna be able to get it done on Poro Bear's turn, but the open attack looking great here. Worst case scenario, we Katarina. It looks like we are gonna have to Katarina as another Unending Cold is top decked, but Poro Bear is aware that the cat is coming. Nothing to be done with the Spell Shield card stuck dead in hand. Nothing to be done with the Fearsome Weapon sitting uselessly behind a Boros. It is just going to be Katarina. The sole tool that Doug has really taken advantage of over the course of this match, just getting so much value out of that champion over the course of that game was absolutely insane.
This was not a Red Gwen. This was a Katarina control winning the game. This was a legit Katarina control. And now we know that it can work. It's very clunky. It's very, we can say it's pretty bad, but it can work.
Yeah, those Tibulk decks you all have been going for, the Annie, Katarina, Tibulk, no, that's not the way. It is to just still put it in the Red Gwen shell, but just only draw that Katarina, let all your other cards sit dead. And those Reckoners really did help end things there, you know, in the final moments. You don't really love to draw 3 of it, but it just really goes to show the versatility and how many different kinds of games you really can just solo rely on a Katarina for.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I always loved the champion, at least in the concept, of course. And even when everyone said, "Okay, it's absolutely unplayable," I was there thinking maybe I can find some ways to make her work. But in the end, we had to wait a pretty big overall rework of all the champions. And I mean, Katarina always been super super good. Now though, she's very shining, especially in those aggro decks because I mean, having access to a rally in an aggro, that's nuts.
But that is going to do it for us for now. We're going to throw it to a quick break, and when we come back, we will have sort of the cumulative match of the evening for you guys. Hold on, I think production was trying to tell me something. Oh, never mind. We actually do still have a match going on to hop into with you guys. It's going to be Sam Sands up against their opponent. We're ready to hop into game whenever production is. We will throw you guys into that action immediately. Maybe they're between games. Maybe we're getting in on turn 2, turn 5. Who knows? Zero, what are we hoping for? What are we hoping to see for this last couple of matches of the evening? Is there anything that you haven't seen yet that you want to see? Because I got my Lee Sin Akshan fix out of the way. I'm pretty good for the night.
I've got the Jinx. I think I want to see Yasuo potentially, some Yasuo Katarina into this new meta because I really like the archetype. And if we come back into like a mid-range style of meta, I think that can be very, very strong. And honestly, probably I want to see how also LeBlanc Ash does into this kind of new Runeterra after Seraphine like left the stage.
I feel like there are too many different flavors of aggro popping up for Ash LeBlanc to kind of stick around. I mean, famously,
Yeah.
discard aggro is something that people are looking at again. One of the most one-sided matchups in the history of Legends of Runeterra was old Frostbite midrange getting absolutely ass blasted by old discard aggro.
Yeah, I absolutely remember it. I've played in a dark age of my like Legends of Runeterra player arc. I played discard under the guidance of Bullet, probably one of the best discard players that Europe have ever seen. And I remember farming those kind of mid ranges because they didn't have literally any tool to deal with me. So if we're getting into that kind of Runeterra again, I think we're gonna get. I think we're gonna see those kind of decks kind of disappear into the meta. But here we are. Samsons should be against Optima. Instead is against Sky Guy. Okay.
Please don't tell me Sam Sands and Sam Anthony are the same person. Tell me we're looking at a different team here.
Let me check. I'm gonna check, and yes, it is wrong. It is wrong pairing of players that we are witnessing right now. I mean, we were seeing a Diana Lunari level up, so this was a pretty good spectacle. We just went in to see the cinematic.
Yeah, I didn't even catch everything that was in that Gnar deck. I don't know if you saw the champion spread a little bit better than I did, but Gnar is not a champion that I think is on my radar really at all right now.
Is Timelines playable? Because I think like if there is anyone playing Timelines in EU, it might be Robomaster because they're always they're playing Timelines in every source possible. But I don't think the deck exactly is on the main meta radar.
Even if it is, I'm not used to seeing Gnar in it. I'm guess maybe it's an American in me, but I'm still used to seeing just a lot of like Caitlyn Trundle.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen Caitlyn Trundle. I mean, Caitlyn Trundle, I don't really like Caitlyn, that archetype, even though she's very good at control, because I think Gnar fits more like into the cycle of the deck, giving you access to, of course, the Pokesticks, leveling up being a threat on its own. But of course, maybe Timeless is going to come back. I don't know. I'm not very strong on that take.
If we're getting into a more mid-range dominated meta, that is, if I remember correctly, like where Timelines initially kind of came up was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like stat check you with a Trundle, and then here's my free 8/8 that's coming off of my Ice Pillar Timelines combo. I don't know if the deck has slowed down too much since then. I mean, Buried in Ice is still an absolute blowout in quite a few matchups, and as long as that is true, I think we'll still see Timelines. And now Ionia should be a lot less prevalent with Akshan Lee Sin going away, which means a lot less Nopifies, which means you don't even have to worry about that Timelines getting countered, which is, I know, something a lot of players were worried about when we saw that, sort of namesake card go up to 2 mana from 1, can no longer turn 1 it. You gotta wait until there's counter magic available. So maybe, I don't think it's an indefensible choice, but I would probably actively try to talk someone out of it.
Yeah. You know what I think it's gonna come back, probably? Fildamina. I think Fildamina might have a chance of coming back.
Feel the Mina. Explain.
I think, especially now, especially with the new cards as Unforgiving Cold, potentially the equipments, that kind of deck with those tools can be very, very, very strong. And pairing Freljord with Ionia now might actually be doable. Yes, Ionia got nerfed, and so if there wasn't the nerf on the Telsons, I would be super strong on this deck, because I think with Telsons that deck would have been insane. But without Telsons, I think it can be very strong. I think we are gonna see it. Maybe not like super meta, but some players are gonna do very good with it.
Well, we'll take a break here and find out after the fact if anyone has brought Field of Mina tonight at least, or if that is something that everybody's going to have to kind of figure out over the course of the week as we, again, get into our World Championship qualifiers just next weekend. But for now, Zero and I will be back in just under 10 minutes to bring you the last match of the evening here, the Aegis Esports Week 4. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the third and final match of the evening. This one will be a cumulative round where all three players will hop onto one lineup to play against each other. Zero, we're coming to the final points of the night. The World Championship is next week. I know you're excited. What are you trying to see out of this last set? What is the one thing that you want to see tested in a tournament sphere before we get onto the grand stage next weekend?
Let me think. As a champion, probably Vayne again, because I need to know how the good Vayne is. Because if you think about it, we have not seen Vayne today at all.
Yeah, it got banned earlier.
It got banned, so we have not seen Vayne in play, and I'm really curious to see how Vayne fares without the rallies. Because of course, you're gonna basically only have Tumble at your disposal, unless you main deck a 5 mana Golden Aegis or a Relentless Pursuit that, yes, it is 4 mana, but does not buff anything anymore.
That's true. So we're going to hop into the decks for what we're going to see for our last bout of the evening. Hopefully a Vayne deck. Can Zero get his wish? And no, it's going to be a return to an old school Ravenbloom Conservatory with Riptide Rex. Conservatory recently getting buffed from 12 countdown up to 11 inherently. That was really the only change to any card in this list. Do you think that was enough to really bring this back, Zero?
I don't know. I really like that this is getting tested out, though, because I was a really big fan of any Ravenbloom decks when it first came out in the World Walker expansion, and so I'm really, really happy to see it being played again. Right now, though, we do not see the 3 copies of Annie, 3 copies of Twisted Fate anymore, but we see 2 copies of Katarina and just 1 of Twisted Fate. So a much more aggressive deck, a deck much more important to rally, important to having a board control. In fact, we see triple copies of Preyfin, triple copies of Sentry, of Spider, Croaker that can push a lot of damage. And of course, at the end of the game, you have the big finisher in Riptide Rex plus the Ravenbloom Conservatory spawning a T-Bulk that absolutely smashed the game.
Yeah, this wasn't the most popular tournament deck, even when it was doing very well on ladders, so curious to see how it plays into the current field. I was actually testing this with someone earlier this evening. I gotta say, did not love this deck as I didn't love it in the past, but let's go ahead and take a look at the second deck of the evening, what they will be going up against. And from Team Just Draw Good Gamers, we have Zoe, Seraphine, Ophelio, something we were robbed of a little earlier as it was actually banned. Inspired Plans, I think I literally need to look up.
Yeah, thank you, because I do not know what that card does either. But we see basically this deck brought
God.
Seraphim Victor of PNZ Ionia, just remove the Ionia because the Ionia is useless right now, and puts in Targon. And I think it's a good choice because we see Aphelios very, very strong champion right now. At this point, Seraphine is kind of the lesser champion in the deck than Aphelios. We see 3 copies of Aphelios, 2 copies of Seraphine, and the 1 of Splash of Zoe. And it's basically the version of Ionia PNZ without Ionia. Very good cards. We have Healing with Guiding Touch. We have Pale Cascade to draw and cycle. Super cool Star Chart to have some variety. And Build the Infinite just to put some big Celestial in the game if we need to.
So Inspired Plans is a 2-mana +1/+1 equipment that says attack, create a new 2-cost spell in hand, and give it fleeting.
No, this is the Seraphine card.
We're playing more and more towards that Seraphine. Obviously, Pursuit of Perfection being included in this list as it is just an insane amount of one-ofs, making sure that the Seraphine will level very quickly. And there's a lot of different spell generators in here as well, right? There's a couple of different ways to build up gems. There is the Mushroom Cloud off of the Chump of Wumps. There's whatever fan club president makes. Honestly, a little surprised not to see more than one fan club president, but that might be the nerf at work. And then, of course, Ludinari Duskbringer and Spacey Sketcher just giving you more and more access to these different kind of spells for you to play. And, maybe we are a little all in on the back alley bars, but no central win condition very obvious here outside of the Pursuit of Perfection. Seraphine, Nephelios, and Zoe, they're all well and good, but they tend not to end games strictly on their own. So we'll see how this one goes. But we are going to throw it to a quick break, as we did end the previous set quite early, and we are not really going to be able to bring you the action just yet. The players are still getting into ready, and we just wanted to go over the decks with you real quick. But actually, before we head to a break, we should take a look at the full head-to-head of the lineups here after we thank Runeterra AR for giving us that snapshot of the deck.
Yeah, let's check if we have the deck lists ready. It
Yeah,
appears
we should have the
do.
full. Okay, I thought we
Oh.
had the full lineup versus lineup graphic, but it looks like we don't have that for this. So we are just gonna go ahead and throw it to the break and be back in a couple of minutes once these players actually have things underway and we know what the bans are going to be. All right, we are back and just about ready to get into the ban phase of tonight's collaborative show match. Looks like we are getting into the full lineup. Here we have Vigar, Nora, and Jaceheimer in the same lineup, once again up against that Leona Diana, Varus Pantheon, and the Zoe Aphelios Seraphine that we took a look at just a little bit earlier. Zero, how are we feeling about bans here, and as well as sort of advantage in the head-to-head?
Okay, I think this is a very similar lineup in a way in what we saw in our first best of three of today. One much more control-y style lineup from the side of Bass Pro Shops, while Team just draw good gamers, a much more down-to-earth mid-range lineup. Like, for example, for sure, Pantheon Varus and Celesbians like Diana Leona are mid-range lineup, are two mid-range decks. I'm still not sure on the complete identity of the Zoe Aphelios Seraphine, but of course, having Catastrophe as the final win condition, that card can also be disrupted pretty well by control decks. Just Vengeance, Ping plus Disintegrate, Ping plus Scorched Earth. So I think Bass Pro Shops should have a slight edge into the ban phase. Don't you think?
Looks like Seraphine is going to eat the ban yet again, and Nora Vigar on the other side. And I gotta agree with you. I'm not feeling great about just draw good gamers here. You know, like you mentioned, that Catastrophe, a little easy to answer for decks that play Vengeance or Disintegrate, and I feel like the same is true of these sort of lower density threat decks that are left on the side of just draw good gamers, and I'm really not confident in their ability to overwhelm this, especially given that late game inevitability of something like a Riptide Rex.
And I think the ban for the PNZ Targon deck from the side of Bass Pro Shops was just to avoid the randomness that could bring. Like, we had a lot of invokes, a lot of random stuff that could happen that would actually hinder the game plan of Bass Pro Shops. Instead, they are leaving two decks that they know they can counter, they know they can win against with their more control style decks.
Really not a lot of big advantage builders on either side of the board, really. No one has that card that just resolves and kind of completely blows the other person out. At least not in the early stages of the game, right? I think either of these decks is more or less going to fold to a Riptide Rex, but we're quite a ways off of that happening. I think in the earlier stages, we're not really getting any solidified handshake on turn 2 style plays out of any of these four remaining decks.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I have to imagine that I see control style decks, but for the longest time, for example, Jace Hammerdinger was literally called turret mid range. So it has some mid game power, and I'm really afraid that with the nerfs to the archetype, maybe even the Pantheon Varus cannot hold against a powerful production surge from the side of Jace Hammerdinger. But I guess we'll have to see, because we could watch all the matchups unfolding here. And what do you think they're gonna start with?
I like to just default to they're going to lead with whatever decks are on the left. So
Yeah,
I like to imagine that we're just going to get a Varus Pantheon up against Conservatory for game 1.
yeah, and thinking about the innovations, because we haven't seen Conservatory in quite a little bit of time. I mean, since it was nerfed in after the big any Conservatory Replied Rex Resurgence era, then it got nerfed and we haven't seen it in quite a bit of time. So Varus got released in the meantime, and do you think his cards can actually counter what Any wants to do, or Conservatory is still gonna rule supreme?
I think Conservatory is probably going to come out on top of that matchup just because the nerf to Saga Seeker is going to be pretty felt in that matchup specifically. Like, if you can get the Blade's Edge onto a turn 1 Saga Seeker, that's a world of difference compared to what we had in the past. You know, without inherent scout on the Pantheon, you're not getting those surprise finishes onto this deck. And, like, they really just need to save Disintegrates and Flocks for Pantheons and Varuses, and there's really not much else you can do in the meantime. It also definitely feels like one of those matchups where, like, a Katarina has quite a few hands where she can just kind of single-handedly take over that game.
I mean, we have seen for sure today Katarina's take over the game, so I'm not surprised. Even more so after you play the T-Bulk, that Blade's Edge, I mean, it's 2 damage.
Yeah, and again, like we saw earlier, you do have a little bit of backline access with the Varus's Corrupting Arrow, but I don't think that's a reliable way to deal with, say, an Annie. And this is a triple Annie deck. If you can get Annie down on one, I'm not sure that there's anything that Varus Pantheon can do to stop that Annie from hitting level 2 and getting that Tibbers into your hand.
Yeah, especially because once Annie gets to level 2, she's unblockable. Like, even if you block her, she's still gonna go through, she's still gonna deal damage, and she doesn't care because she just stuns your unit, and you have to commit a spell shield to block her, to block and kill her. And unless, as you mentioned, either you have Varus spell or you roll a challenger on the Pantheon after the level up, you don't have any type of backline access. And since you don't play Demacia, you do not even have striking spells. At best, you have the 4-mana striking spell, but you have to have equipped one of your units, and it's really counterable by that kind of decks.
Yeah, on the other side, though, I actually think that Leona Diana does pretty well into the Conservatory. I think a lot of your lower damage tools that typically give you a good aggro matchup are just absolutely useless into Diana Leona. I think you need to resolve a Tibble just to be able to play the game, and throwing all of your spells at them in order to get to the Tibble in the first place is an incredibly inefficient way to play the game, but it's just something that you kind of have to do. And a Riptide Rex in a timely fashion will swing it all the way back in the favor of the Conservatory player. But with Winding Light coming down just a turn before that, that could even be one of those games that really just kind of comes down to who has the attack token on which turns.
Yeah, definitely. And we have seen happen quite a bit. I wonder though, does this Hammerdinger beat both of these decks for you?
I believe so. I definitely think the Heimer is going to be the taller task for Just Draw Good gamers to sort of get through in this matchup, but we did see it earlier on. If not for the randomly generated Ruination, then Dragon wouldn't have even really had the chance to throw in the manner that he did, but again, it was a randomly generated Sunburst that took out a Heimerdinger early on that even made it a game in the first place, so barring a Sunburst onto the Heimer randomly, I think that's a champion that just kind of comes down and sticks and is too difficult for this Leona Diana to deal with.
Yeah. And we should get in the game really, really soon, but every single time that we get to the third set, we get to the collaborative set, I get really hyped because I know that 3 players are all together, all like, thinking and paving the way to a very, very, very good best of 3. So let's see what these 2 teams are gonna show us tonight. And it's gonna be first deck for Bass Pro Shops, Jace Hammerdinger. First deck for Just Draw Good Gamers, Pantheon Varus.
I'm actually trying to figure out what group they're in so I can look at the players.
Should be 5, or maybe it's 1. Either 1, 3, or 5.
Those are very different numbers.
I mean, it's either 1, 3, or 5, because there are odds.
It's 3.
Okay. Perfect. What situation are they in based on rankings?
Oh boy, this is looking pretty bad for Just Draw Good gamers.
Yeah, the hand is not that optimal, doesn't have anything to put down and proc Fated, doesn't have anything to put down and start leveling up the Pantheon. Meanwhile, Bass Pro Shops, they can just chill.
Yeah, we're already on pace to get the Heimerdinger down on the next turn. We actually might even lose our Pantheon here. And that is just a devastating blow.
Oh no, and look at the emote games from both sides. Absolutely on point for both the players, and we are gonna have to play Shepherd naked. Nothing to cast it on, no fated keyword to proc. Meanwhile, Bass Pro Shops, next turn they can just play the Heimerdinger, and there is really nothing for Just Draw Good Gamers to do to counter it.
I think Just Draw Good Gamers probably needs to fire off a Pale Cascade here. You need to start targeting things for both champions level ups. You need to just start cycling through your hand, because as good as triple Pale Guiding Touch is, that is 8 mana to draw 4 cards. You need to just start doing that to draw a card. And we find exactly what we were looking for, actually, which is the Equipped Strike spell, the one thing that we can actually use to kill this Heimerdinger.
Yeah, and we also know that it is actually gonna be enough because there are not enough answers from the set of Bass Pro shops to answer the strike spell. There is just one Mystic Shot, but that's 2 damage. That's not enough.
Yeah, and this is the only... Okay, so we actually are going to see Bass Pro Shop sort of play respectfully of the strike spell
Day and night.
and not fire off this Heimerdinger just yet. Maybe want to wait until we've got a little bit less mana from our opponent.
I wonder, most of all, just Bass Pro shops, they want to negate the targeting this turn from just draw good gamers. So I think they are just gonna be passing back until JDGG are gonna target their first unit.
And I mean, throwing a gem out here isn't a big commitment. I don't think there is actually any 5-mana spell in this deck, so you are not really taking yourself off of anything that you were not representing previously. You know, you still have your strike spell available and threatened. Bass Pro Shop, I'd be very surprised if they did anything after this gem comes down. You haven't cleared anything. Okay. Gonna take a Piercing Darkness over onto the Shepherd. At least make them re-equip here. Not going to be able to get the Heimer down this turn, or likely even next turn, but... You know, there's no pressure coming out of JDGG. Bass Pro Shop can theoretically just wait until Vengeance is a play alongside the Heimerdinger. They're really not in any rush here.
Not in a rush. Second Furious Wielder comes down here, and that can be actually the answer to the Vengeance play that we just mentioned now, if we get a very big unit down on board. But at the moment, the big unit is not there. We can re-equip the weapon to our 2-drop, but that's it. We can play the Ayula, but we do not have anything else.
Oh no, I really like slamming Aloof Travelers in this position. Not only is your opponent on a 10-card hand, so they're going to overdraw, but you already know that you're aiming pretty low in their hand since Pantheon was their highest cost card.
Yeah, I think the overdraw was even
all
better.
you did was whiff the overdraw here. Oh no, this might actually be a false sense of security now, watching your opponent discard one of the strike spells, not knowing that there are 2 extra copies waiting in hand.
Yeah, that's a full sense of security for JDGG to lure in Bass Pro shops. I mean, they have to make do with what they're given, and what they're given is not very much.
If Bass Pro Shops had opened with the Aloof Travelers, they actually would have gotten 2 of the strike spells out of their opponent, because they would have overdrawn the first one and then still discarded one. Could have been everything. So beautiful.
Their purpose and mine is clear.
Wait, but now we have the play. No, we still do not have the play available of Heimerdinger plus Vengeance. So
yeah,
I think
we are
still
1
gonna
turn off of
retain.
that.
We can play Handler. We can play Handler because we have already played the 1/6 plus cost spell, so we could get the buff on the turrets already.
What 6+ cost spell did we play?
The Piercing Darkness.
Ah, true. Well, that's good, because I was thinking, man, do you just Vengeance this Varus so that you can turn your Handler online? Good. I think one of us was keeping track of whether or not a 6+ cost spell had been played, so that drastically impacts how we cast this game and things like that. Speaking of which, it is going to be a cast of a Pale Cascade to get this unit outside the range of the Handler. 4 damage coming in from the Varus. And full survival, Bass Pro Shops not using a Mystic Shot just yet. At 9 cards in hand, still has the ability to pass without being punished. Looks like
this is
something's queued up
literally
here.
this is peak control gameplay from Bass Pro Shops. So look at the hand. Literally every single spell they have, aside from this production surge that they just played, is a control spell, is a target spell, a removal, and they're just sitting there with their main champion, with their main engine, and everything else to defend them.
So Production Surge going to go wide. Nothing too crazy, but the Hextech Handler buff definitely paying its rent here. Pretty nice looking open attack from Bass Pro Shop. Not Not a whole lot in the trade department, especially if this spell shield it looks like going to come down onto the Varus. But quite a few different options available from Pro Shop. I mean, if they want to get really aggressive here, they actually could open with like a Shock Blast onto 2 of these units.
Yeah, I mean, you know, your opponent is very thin on units because they have not played a lot of them in the past few rounds. So Shock Blast definitely can be a play. I mean, Shock Blast would actually immediately level up our Jace if we ever top deck one. But the open attack is really juicy as well.
Yeah, now it's just kind of a question of, is JDGG going to sort of take a chump block with the Eula onto one of the Aloof Travelers, or are we going for a full damage trade here? It looks like we are preserving our health total rather than our board. It is going to be only Varus surviving.
Varus, of course, striking, it means he release all of the strength he had gathered with the bow, but he's gonna start stacking soon enough. And this actually could be an Orazi development, even though I think it's pretty greedy, because then, of course, immediately when Mystic Shot comes out, getting rid of the spell shield. But again, that's an open attack with a 7 damage, with a 7/7 Varus.
Yeah, I mean, this is also an opportunity to get the Heimerdinger down now, right?
Yep.
We have the Flash of Brilliance for the follow-up as well. We have Mystic Shot Vengeance to take out one of the units next turn, as well as develop a rather large, elusive turret.
And this might be the overextension from JDGG playing Urazi, but how can you blame them? They have to do something in this game, because if they don't do anything, they're just gonna get killed by the value of Basper Shops.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this was the best time to play the Harazi, or you could have maybe waited a little bit longer. You know, keep open the 4-mana blade this turn, go for this next turn. But it looks like the idea is next turn to equip a weapon to Harazi, give Fearsome as well as Overwhelm onto this Varus, pump it to the moon, and really just try to one-shot our opponent. Atrocity picked up off of the Flash of Brilliance, not nearly as good for Bass Pro Shop as it would have been for Just Draw Good Gamers, who are looking at a potential lethal on the following turn. I haven't quite mapped it out, but honestly, they're going to get pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, they would get pretty close if they didn't decide to immediately open attack. I mean, this hinders the chances of a lethal. But even after that, Bass Pro Shops are in no danger. I mean, we know this. There is a Vengeance.
Yeah, there's a Vengeance Mystic Shot.
There's just no way this is lethal, and from now on, I mean, if you are JDGG, you have to get rid of the Heimer. Either you go for the lethal and you get blown out, or, and I mean, when you see that the lethal is no more, you have to get rid of the Heimer.
Yeah, JDGG looks like they're currently mathing out whether or not they can get this Varus to lethal. And I sincerely hope that they have mathed out that they can, because otherwise I don't really want to see you just kind of randomly pushing a little bit of extra damage into your opponent if it is not going to be a lethal amount. Based on the cards that they're throwing out, this is looking like it. This is probably going to be a preemptive strike spell.
Let's see. It's one off at the moment, and yeah. That's...
And you're just good with one off.
Okay.
Is there any reach that JDGG has available? I'm inclined to say no, outside of generating an impact weapon.
Yeah, probably that's the thing, but here it comes. Mystic Shot plus Vengeance. No damage is gonna actually come through here, and this is disaster.
This does let you kill the Heimer, at least.
Yes, but I think Bass Pro Shops kind of knew that. Like, Bass Pro Shops knew that they were, you know, for the Heimer.
Yeah.
They were exchanging the Heimer for lethal, or at least 15 damage. And I think it's a trade they're willing to take, especially since they are generating value out of it.
This is going to be an absolute disaster for JDGG, not just losing the Heimer, but Bass Pro Shop actually has the option to develop a Jace alongside these turrets and get a really, really strong open attack going here. Maybe not open attack, maybe we do go for the Jace spell, the acceleration gate. I'm trying to think of what JDGG can have for this. Obviously, Succumb to the Cold is something that is going to be in the back of your mind anytime you're trying to end the game through combat damage.
There's nothing a little ingenuity can't fix.
Yeah, absolutely, but let's see here. The top deck from Just Draw Good Gamers, they have also 2 unending waves to draw more into their deck, but their end is absolutely full, 10 cards for them, so they would just go into overdraw. And acceleration gates here, buffing everything on Bass Pro Shop side of the board. This might be the lethal attack, this might be it, this might be the 1-0 from BPS.
And even if JDGG had double unending cold to survive this turn guaranteed, they're not really clearing anything out. They only have this Harazi. They don't have sort of an overwhelm weapon to pair with it. Like, they have the Varus, but I really don't think their hand is situated to get us back to a Varus lethal, especially considering the Vengeance Mystic Shot combo still available to Bass Pro Shops after all was said and done.
And just look at that elusive unit, just look at that, it's so big, it's insanely powerful, it has fated, even though it doesn't matter, even though it's nothing, but it has fated.
And there is a Hush on the side of JDGG if they want to sort of slash at one of these units, block another one, Hush one of them.
Yeah, I mean, you survive, but at what cost? Like, next turn there is gonna be potentially the Atrocity, there is gonna be the Shock Blast. Too many tools at this point from the side of BPS.
I think Hush needs to get used here onto the Fearsome turret to turn it back into a 3-1 so that your Harazi doesn't die, because I think Overwhelm Harazi is one of the few ways you're actually getting out of this one.
Yes, I agree. This is basically the only way. You have to get one more unit down the next turn. You can get immediately now potentially the Saga Seeker, even though it's gonna be healed from just a target spell. You can play the Varus, but as you mentioned, this is on only win condition, and we are following it.
Unfortunately, no mana to get down the Saga Seeker, as I'm sure you mentioned, but
oh, true, yeah.
There will be a Varus and a Saga Seeker coming down on the following turn, and that's you know, in a lot of situations, that probably would have been enough. You know, you'll have 2 10-1s with Overwhelm, plus whatever Varus gets himself up to. You top deck something to make you a few gems along the way to pump more damage into absolutely every corner. But I just think Bass Pro Shops has the answers. You get the 2 Unforgiving Cold, but as soon as you sort of get below that mana point, that Atrocity is looking game-ending.
But even not Atrocity, even just the Shock Blast, it's gonna be double Shock Blast because of Jace, and so you do not even have to risk playing the Atrocity and risking the Unforgiving Cold play. This is just GG here. Double Shock Blast, Jace ends the game.
That is going to be game 1, going to Bass Pro Shops. Just Draw Good Gamers, not just drawing good enough. Getting those 2 unending colds. The turn after was really relevant. And fleeting, no less. Speaking of fleeting, what is not fleeting is our time here in the Legends of Runeterra space. Me and Zero have been doing an excellent job of keeping you all entertained this evening. And of course, we are only on week 4 of the Aegis Esports League. There are many more weeks to come, just as there are many more games to come for the remainder of this evening. That's right. I know that game was quite long and drooling, but it was just the first game of the night. There's still 2 more to go. Potentially, maybe 1.
Maybe 1, it depends. BPS started off really strong this best of 3 with a very dominant victory, but we said their lineup is actually advantaged. But here we see the spicy deck from BPS, the comeback of the Ravenbloom Conservatory and Annie. This time with Katarina and of course the Rex as a finisher.
And this is the matchup where we felt like, you know, maybe they have some game. The Varus, the Pantheon, rather singular threats in a build like this. Things that are easily picked apart by Disintegrate. And nothing too crazy to really end the game before we get into Riptide Rex territory. So opening with the Conservatory, gonna do wonders for Bass Pro Shop. The difference between a Conservatory Riptide and a non-Conservatory Riptide, absolutely massive.
Yeah. We have to say, though, this is gonna let JDGG start off with the Saga Seeker, though, because we mentioned earlier in the ban phase that in theory, JDGG cannot develop the Saga Seeker turn 1 because of the risk of Blade's Edge. But now, Blaze Edge is not there anymore, at least in mana potential. But they decide to not go for it, and they go for it turn 2.
Yeah, it's the old, you'd play Zoe on 2 because of Pale into Vile Feast or whatever. It's the same thing here. You know, you have the option to equip the weapon if everything goes according to plan, or you can go for the Pale Cascade. And it looks like we are actually just going to Pale in combat, not going for the weapon equip.
Yeah, failed immediately in combat. Yeah, it makes absolute sense, having played it this round, to have the Nightfall effect come true. And first Unforgiving Cold, we have it in hand. Not the the best card to have against BPS in this matchup. This deck does not deal damage to your Nexus through attacks, at least usually. I mean, until they have T-Bulk slamming with overwhelm damage to your face, but instead they do it through spells.
Well, not just that. I want to talk about this Furious Wielder for a second. You know, we saw it do a lot of work in the previous game. It's going to have to do really just as much heavy lifting here, and it's on really low costing targets, right? Like, you kind of need to deal with the Annie because you don't want that to just get Tibbers and run away on you. But those Zap Spray Fins really start to add up once they've pecked you once or twice, so you kind of want it for those. And then you also, you know, it'd be embarrassing if like a Twisted Fate were to just level up on you, right? But also there's those Katarinas that like really you only have the Furious Wielder to deal with, and hopefully you can get some value out of the Unending Cold to deal with a Katarina specifically. But for the most part, like there's just so many targets, all of which cost the same amount as the Furious Wielder. You're not getting that high priority value like you would against something like a higher costed backline champion, like, I don't know, like a Leona or something.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Let's see here, JDGG, what they're gonna decide to do: block and not have anything else on the board, not having anything else to play your target spells or your weapons next round, or instead just go and take the damage. And they decided to take 3 damage from the sentry. And they got rewarded with the second Shepherd top deck.
Yeah, actually doing a really good job at keeping up the targets in between rounds, right? I think you've managed to do it turns 2, 3, and 4, so we're halfway to the level up on both the Pantheon and the Varus.
Yep, exactly. Here we might actually see the Croaker play from the side of BPS to just draw more and cycle into your deck, have one blocker have 2 blockers actually, instead of just one, to stop the Shepherds from attacking you. And that's gonna be the play. Let's see what the top deck is. Sentry. I mean, Sentry is always good, especially in mid-range matchups, because having chopped blockers can make the difference between staying alive until turn 8 or until turn 9.
Yeah, with the nerf to Zenith Blade however long back at this point, I don't even remember, there's really not a lot of overwhelm in Pantheon anymore. So those chump blockers, where previously it really didn't matter, because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm blocking 1 damage while this, you know, 2/4 wounded White Flame just gobbles up my Spiderling, overwhelms at me, gets bigger for it.
Oh my god, the White Flame.
Yeah, RIP White Flame.
Those are bad flashbacks. Those were like painful flashbacks to remember.
They really printed a 3-mana 2/4 with Faded. Does everyone remember 2/4 White Flame?
Oh no. That was insane. I mean, especially with the Yuumi, like the Yuumi White Flame combo was not of this world.
But all to round back out and say, yeah, chump blockers used to not be good against Pantheon. Now they sort of are.
Yeah,
Oh,
still
the
no.
scout weapon picked up.
Yeah, the Rake has been picked up. The scout weapon, the first weapon chosen from with the first Shepherd, is very, very, very good because, of course, after the nerfs, like 4 months ago or 5 months ago, to Pantheon, he cannot develop the scout anymore by himself with leveling up, so he needs a weapon to do it.
Kind of an awkward hand here on the side of JDGG.
Yeah, anything you play basically commits you out of everything other play. I mean, the Rake probably is the most affordable one because then you would still have 4 mana to play either of your champions, but even then, you don't really want to play them without protection.
Yeah, and like you could play Pantheon here and play the Rake on it. It'll be relatively protected due to its barrier this round. You can open attack with the Scout attack. You'll be at 4 out of 5 on the level up, so you could even, something like Momentous Choice in the combat phase in order to level up the Pantheon, get your guaranteed Scout attack off. But if you go for a slower line, if you try to like equip a second weapon, you are just going to get hit with the Arachnoid Sentry. Which, like, maybe you rolled Spell Shield off of the weapon equip, but it's not something you want to be relying on. And a dicey play that JDGG gonna opt not to take is actually blocking the Annie with the Pantheon and saying, yeah, I believe you don't have a way to pop my barrier, or at least not a significant one, and I can get this block off, but are just going to take the safer line and go for the Scout weapon equipment for 4 out of 5 on the Pantheon. And now, does it get an opportunity to get stunned, or are we straight into combat?
And this is a momentous choice. The Pantheon. We are gonna try to get the. Are we gonna try to get the lethal? Everything lies on the keywords that the champion is gonna roll. And here it comes. Are we gonna see the slot machine?
So there's no shot at lethal this turn, right? Because Bass
but
Pro
even
Shop can
elusive?
stun it.
Oh, true. There is a stun coming down.
And we got to disintegrate to pop a spell shield if that is something that even turns out to be an issue. But let's take a look at everything going on here. I see Challenger, I see Lifesteal, I see Fury, Elusive, and Impact. I see
Yeah.
the potential for lethal if there was not an Arachnoid Sentry here.
Or even a disintegrate plus make it rain.
Yeah, I mean, would you disintegrate, make it rain in this situation? Would you risk that?
I don't know if I want to take 9 damage. And yeah, it's a pretty big risk because you're playing around. Okay, my opponent does not have anything. Does not have the thingy. The how is it called? The protection spell.
Well, it's also a risk because you could have just not hit Pantheon with Make It Rain.
Oh, true. I mean, true. Actually, I
that was sort of the bigger risk associated here, was you just might miss.
I mean, I kind of forgot about it. Oh my god.
All right, second Pantheon. Can this one roll Spell Shield? No, but it does have Lifesteal, which might be enough to get Bass Pro Shop to commit the Arachnoid Sentry. Also, just to be one wider for the Tibulk on the following turn.
Yes, I mean, with this you're proccing Tibulk immediately. I don't think you need to because, of course, it's 1, so it's gonna proc itself at the end of the turn. I think it depends. It does not have Challenger, so cannot take, of course, the either of your unit. You can just take the damage if it's 4 that you're afraid of. And I don't think that 4 damage in against this deck really make a difference of lifesteal, because usually when you play the Rex, you have so much damage that 4 are not that big of a deal. But I guess doing this is a safer play, and it's the better play overall.
I'm armed. Am I armed?
All right, still going in with a few units. Bass Pro Shop. Gonna line up a blocker, not using this flock just yet.
Okay, so we're gonna develop Spiderlings now. Yeah.
Yeah, here comes the House Spider. This is really just telegraphing the next play into Tibulk, but it is a rather large attack for JDGG to sort of deal with here.
Yeah, I mean, even after a Tibulk, we are not out of fuel. We have Nagakaburas for next turn, so even if the block comes in, we see the Unforgiving Cold from the side of JDGG, so some of the damage is gonna be mitigated, but not all of it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any risk of lethal this turn, as JDGG does have lifesteal on the Pantheon. Now, cannot currently use Furious Wielder on the Pantheon. There is no weapon equipped here, but equipping a weapon to it would put it into Tibulk killing range, so it's probably something on JDGG's radar. You can probably stay at 20 with equipping Pantheon and playing the Furious Wielder. You probably don't even have to use your Frostbite spell this turn.
Yeah, BPS, you're really thinking about the play they're gonna make, because Tibulk has no simple choice. It would mean committing every single mana that you have at your disposal for this turn, aside from, of course, that flock that's always open to target the Pantheon. Let's see if Pantheon blocks, because Pantheon blocking means, as I said, it's under the range of flock. And this is the 50-50. Wait, okay, no. You're not blocking the 2-2 with Pantheon.
This way, come along.
If you really want to get crafty,
This is 50-50. This is 50-50 though. Because if you don't, if Pantheon gets damaged, it gets under, it gets actually under the flock. And even if you heal the Pantheon, I think it still gets damage, no? It still retains the damage because of the Fated.
no, it should go back to full because it's only going to take 2
okay.
damage.
Of your life,
I guess.
not last.
But it's also got Fury, so I think the Fated proc plus the heal would put it at 5 health anyway.
Hey,
Oh,
stop
true.
that.
The Fury.
This way, come along.
And now we got to do something. I'm a little curious why we're. Oh, that's right. Fury's. I keep forgetting that Pantheon isn't currently equipped, and that's why we can't just Furious Wielder the Pantheon. Gonna get us a Varus for our troubles, which, honestly, not a bad pickup. Just being able to, sort of fire off a couple of the cursed arrows on the following turn, take out some of these back row units, get the board a little bit more under control. A little bit of a pipe dream.
And the Rake immediately eating the Pantheon again. We need some kind of damage dealing spell to Pantheon. It's gonna be the
no.
Katarina.
Yeah, that's actually enough. Katarina plus Blade's Edge plus Flock is 5 mana. The Fated has already been used this turn. This would be enough
we
even
can
through
heal,
Pale
no?
Cascade. It's only Momentous Choice that stops this play from Bass Pro Shops.
I mean, no, we heal, no?
This might hurt.
If we heal,
Oh
we're
yeah,
out
you
of
could just
flock.
heal, yeah.
Uh-uh.
I think a lot of times when I have a Guiding Touch that can save a unit, it's like stunned as well. And I've embarrassingly tried to save my stunned unit from a flock by healing it so many times that when I run into these situations again, I'm just like, oh no, it's gonna die.
That makes sense. Is Bass Pro Shops gonna pass here? Is gonna take the bait because JDGG are basically just waiting to play it.
Yeah, and I guess on the side of Bass Pro Shops, you're kind of thinking, what am
You
I really
draw.
losing out on here? Which, funny enough, like now Pale Cascade saves this, where it would not have saved it last turn, is one of the things that you kind of opened yourself up to.
But now you want to draw more. Like, yeah, now you can commit, then your opponent has to heal, and then you have like a burst open to draw more into for example, disintegrate, into for example, more and more stuff. Ooh. Okay,
And
this is clever.
Man, JDGG just keeps getting close, and then Bass Pro Shops has a stun for the second attack, right?
Yep.
Like, first it was this Arachnoid Sentry, now it's the Twisted Fates gold card.
Yeah, and with this greedy play, because they tried to go immediately for the potential double attack with the scout, without giving Bass Pro Shop the option to play Flock, the pre-commitment of the Guiding Touch, now this TF is actually gonna be able, with the Flock, to kill the Pantheon.
The good news is that at least JDGG will be going back to 15 life here for their troubles.
Yep.
And actually, if they want to, they can save this from a flock by equipping one of the weapons. It still dies to Tibulk Flock on the next turn, but I don't think you're really doing much else with your turn. You might as well get it out of flock range before you throw down whatever you were going to throw down.
The answer is gonna be no. This Varus going Super Saiyan 5. I love the animation, but I wonder if Varus is gonna be enough. I mean, yes, Overwhelm. Yes,
I mean, Bass Pro Shop
attack
might not go
token.
for it again. Yeah, it is going to get fired off.
It is gonna get fired off. And let's see if Varus can get the lethal. Because we have the spell, we can buff the Varus. Wait, this is lethal.
With the gems? Is there going to
no,
like 8 attack? There's only 2 health blockers? Yeah, I mean...
Oh, true.
believe that 2 gems will do it.
Yeah,
That'll
that's
also do
it,
it.
7. And
I forgot
yeah,
that
I
the
was thinking
arrow,
about
like-
display.
I forgot
I
that
was
it like
think-
gave attack.
Yeah, I was thinking about display. I was thinking about display because it's a spell that that activates Varus' weapon, and I was like, yeah, this is lethal because it gives also +1.
Yeah,
So,
I always forget that it
GG.
does things other than just give something vulnerable.
I think it gives +1 for every time you cast it.
Yeah.
So
Why did
+1
Varus go
attack,
up to
+1 attack.
7 instead of 6?
Because that's the way it goes in
Champion's so
combo.
confusing, dude.
Yeah, I mean, champions are getting more and more, they're having more and more worded effects, like in League. We are
Okay.
having like the Aphelios effect.
So level 2 Varus doubles each Darken Bow activation, so it gets 2 attack every
Yes.
time you target something. Okay. I think that's where I was getting lost. Because I'm like, I'm a Nami player, man. I'm just letting it all rip. I'm not doing math.
Okay, you're just going, you say, okay, I don't care
Yeah,
if
I'm
it's
like,
20
this
or
looks
30
like
damage.
lethal, and I throw 5 spells at my Varus, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's got 25 attack. That's around the range I figured we were gonna end at.
Amazing. I love it.
Is the one true light.
But look at Bass Pro Shops are really pros of starting with with Ravenbloom Conservatory every single time turn 1. But this time around, JDGG, we said this matchup maybe is a little more favored for the side of JDGG than the other one, but they are kind of bricked in the end right now.
Yeah, and Annie is nowhere near as safe in this matchup as she was in the previous one. Diana just eyeballs Annie from across the room. It's the perfect pair for a dead champion on one side with absolutely no consequences on the other. So you really can't just kind of throw that down in the early game all willy-nilly. But, Bass Pro Shop's going to decide they don't really have much else to do. They need to get on board. Might as well see where this Annie takes us.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Annie is pivotal to get your landmark off early game, or at least into the mid game, maybe turn 5, turn 6. That's what you really want to get your T-Bulk off as soon as you can, because of course all of your deck gets empowered by it. But I'm wondering, are you gonna go for the Spiderlings here or the Croaker? The Croaker seems to be the play.
And that actually does open up a kill onto the Annie with this Unspeakable
Yep.
Horror. Which JDGG not going to waste any time just getting this champion right out of here.
Yeah, that would have meant most likely an open attack next turn, so we've got another stack of the landmark.
Ooh, another Unto Dusk.
We have seen how powerful that card can be, especially with this deck, especially with the Winning Light as the win condition, as the final win condition, that can be activated multiple times, both in the same round or in different rounds, because if you don't get the lethal ones, then you can rebuild the board with a Winning Light always there, and then you play onto Dusk, and your opponent just doesn't expect for 2 mana to get the same effect of a 6 mana card. 7 mana.
For the time being, though, no Nightfall cards immediately available to JDGG, and none going to be available. Okay, there's a Diana. I was going to say anytime soon is where we're not really close to being able to daybreak this Twilight Eclipse. We probably want to get down our second Sun dial here and start sort of curving into the Ravoon turn. Maybe next turn it's not Ravoon, maybe we go for a Diana. And that's where we can get our Eclipse card down as a Daybreak to get us a Nightfall card. And hopefully
I think Ravoon is
something-
pretty good, because you can Ravoon into the 1-cost spell and get both the effects from the Daybreak and the Nightfall. Since Ravoon says it's always there for us, but you still have the
Oh,
Daybreak
wow.
effect. And this
These
is gonna be
Twilight
insane.
Protectors.
Yes. Look, both the sun and the moon are activated at the same time.
Alright, it's gonna be Dusk Rider and Solari Shield Bearer. Been a while since I had to remember that one's name. Everyone just plays Sunhawk nowadays. I've played quite a few Leona Mirrors and I haven't seen a single Shield Bearer.
Yeah. And the board from set of JDGG is very, very big, but they just decide to pass. They do
Yeah.
not feel confident.
A lot of hesitation here.
Yeah, if I were BPS, I would just land a Croaker now, and this attack looks even more terrible from the side of JDGG now. So
It
the
looks
pass
like
is
they-
obligated.
really want to not get either of their units Ravenous Flocked, and at a 5/6 they can block with like the House Spider and then flock it immediately after. Because these are about to get into unkillable ranges, sans Disintegrate or Scorched Earth. So that was sort of the last turn that these were mortal units, and now we can get them into the range of immortality. And the reward for, you know, maybe our opponent doesn't have flock, maybe this is safe, is you kill like a 2/1 and a 1/1. It's not really a worthwhile risk.
Yeah, I agree. And now BPS are kind of lacking a way to get their win condition ready. But I want to tell you, like, this is in 2 turns potentially. This is TF level up. And if we get to a TF level up, I mean, we are back to 2020, 2021, early 2021 with Fitz TF. I mean, we know all too well what a leveled up TF can do.
Oh wow, we're just taking all the damage. If
Ooh.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that a Winding Light top deck secures the game for JDGG.
Yes.
They also have an option to get one off of this 1-mana spell as well.
Do you believe?
Oh, I absolutely believe. I've never
So we
believed
are
more than anything in my
believers.
life.
So we are believers.
For this, yes.
Okay, it's gonna be a lottery. I mean, we are gonna get both
Show it to me,
the
JDGG.
Sunbreak and
Show me
the
that
Daybreak
Winding Light.
effect.
Show me you want victory tonight.
No.
Okay, cast the Unspeakable Horror and show me if you want a Winding Light.
I mean, it's not playable next turn anyway, but because we do not have a Dusk Petal.
Yeah, it is a little unfortunate.
So we would
Probably just
get
have to-
jump blocked.
Probably just have to float the mana and, you know, hope for a top deck of a Winding Light here so that you can fire off something.
Yeah. I think that's gonna be their play. And another pass out, the biggest board, one of
Oh,
the biggest
man.
boards they've ever seen. And now we see the Leona, and Leona is leveled up, and now we can start actually stunning everything
This-
from the side of Bath Pro Shop.
Twisted Fate might level if you play Zap Sprayfin and then one of your draw spells as it's dying. I actually think you can just fire off both your draw spells here and now and do it. The sort of issue with that is this deck only plays one Twisted Fate. So if it levels and then immediately dies, it didn't matter.
No, it just
Here, okay, with just one spell to do it, you will at least get the blue card, and you might even be able to string into a gold card. Gold card seems ambitious, but you can definitely get to, like, red.
Yes, I mean, you can definitely get at least one. You can definitely get at least 2. We are getting rid of the one of the elusives. We have a second sentry potential to stop the Diana
Yeah.
from challenging the TF, and I think Diana is gonna come down. And look at the bait, look at the back and forth between the two players. Cinematic from Leona, cinematic from Diana. The two lovers are at the same time on the board, both corrupted. But
Both
that's
stunned.
not gonna be enough. Yeah, and now we're getting a red card effect, and we're getting potentially also the yellow card thanks to the Ravenous Flock.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what Bass Pro Shops wants to play here, because anything they play, you know, will red card the Diana and theoretically puts it into range to Ravenous Flock. You know, we have seen Guiding Touch in this list. Maybe we haven't. I think I'm lying about that.
My patience.
I'm
No, I
thinking
mean-
of the Pantheon game again. I'm like, I've definitely seen Guiding Touch duck a Ravenous Flock this evening.
Man, like it was. Oh,
Okay, yeah, it's just gonna be the red card Flock.
yes, makes sense. We're gonna take a little bit of damage. We're gonna take 3 damage.
We can take all the damage in the world,
No.
baby.
Maybe 4, maybe more, because Diana is not gonna. Okay, no. If Diana goes for it for this, we're gonna take a little bit.
Oh yeah, Diana has to go for the Twisted Fate.
Yeah. So we're not gonna take damage actually, because the yellow card is gonna stop the 9/9.
Yeah. We might take a little bit of damage. I don't know if you want to throw everything under the bus just for the sake of doing it.
I mean, we have a lot of cards and we have a lot of draw, so we might as well.
I think you can even leave the 3/1 up Like, it's probably safe to take that damage just because that'll die to a red card next turn, or like you're about to get
True.
through so many Katarinas and Blades Edges.
True, actually. This is very difficult because we had said, okay, if there was Winding Light there, that could have been the game. But actually, no Winding Light, NTF level up mean the game is all too difficult at the moment for just real good gamers. We know how powerful the leveled up TF can be. A win conditioner on his own and one of the strongest champions in the game. A little bit sad that he's gonna be rotated out, but looking at his power level, it's understandable. This champion was a nightmare to balance. I swear. I think for the Riot game balance team for LOR, that was a pain.
Oh, for sure. Is there anything that JDGG can do to... I feel like a Winding Light still presents a really good shot at lethal.
Yeah, it really presents a good shot at lethal. I wonder if it actually is a good shot at lethal, because now... even our red cards are gonna be 2 damage, so we're gonna start literally destroying the board from the side of JDGG even more. But the Comet next turn could solve the TF.
I mean, it is worth mentioning again that this is just a one of Twisted Fate in Bass Pro Shop's deck. The fear that you go to kill a Twisted Fate, they fire off all 3 cards, and then play a fresh one and do it again. Those are not real nightmares in this scenario. You can just remove this Twisted Fate and never have to deal with it again. The issue, of course, is still, you know, the Tibulk and all these other little units that are running around. There's still a lot of things that you need to deal with, but at least Twisted Fate won't be one of them.
Yeah, Twisted Fate won't be there. And we are trying to remove as much as we can of BPS board to go for that open attack.
Barely whiffing on the Ravoon with that Make It Rain, hitting the 2 units to his left. Does still leave a lot of rather hardy blockers for JDGG though, yeah, which means no attacks coming out of Bass Pro Shops. And still no Winding Light for JDGG.
When Luke was arrived, the Rex is there.
And there's a Blade's Edge in hand. You can play the Blade's Edge in response to the comment, or you can flock something and Blade's Edge something else, get to the red card to damage the Nexus.
You can do both, exactly. Honestly,
yeah, you could Blade's Edge the 11-2 and then like flock the Ravoon.
Oh man. Oh man. It was looking so good for JDGG until the TF level up, and then it wasn't anymore.
Okay, we're going Blade's Edge Nexus and flock on the 10-6.
And this means, and JDGG, they know, I'm waiting for the emote game. I'm waiting for...
Yeah, this is going to be a fat Riptide Rex lethal.
Yeah, this is the awareness that's sipping in. They know they can't do anything anymore. They know they have done everything that was in their power to stop BPS. But in the end, the Rex of Bilgewater, and Rex means king in Italian, is gonna come in and win the game for BPS.
It also means king in Dinosaur.
Yeah, I mean, not in Italian, but in Latin, but it was cool to say it that way. But nevertheless, this
I
is
like
the
that
GG.
Tyrannosaurus Rex means Lizard King.
Yes. It really does.
We're gonna get a Pale here. For all the good it'll do.
Yeah, the Pale will for sure save you.
The Cannon Barrage is gonna be a little bit too much, and Bass Pro Shop's gonna take it over JDGG here. 2-1.
I really love this deck. I really love how Rex can finish from any spot and just take the win. And so the King of Bilgewater takes the win for Bass Pro Shop against JDGG. I mean, it was a valiant effort. They were almost there if they just stopped the one Winding Light before it was too late. But
Yeah, I
leveled
think
up
what
TF.
everybody failed to realize that this is Team Fish, right? That's what Bass Pro Shop is. It's all these Nami enjoyers. Drissoth, Ikado, M-Tuck. So I guess what I'm getting at here is they flexed a little bit and proven that Riptide Rex, despite being a crocodile, shark, alligator thing, is in fact a fish. It falls within the jurisdiction of Bass Pro Shop. They can play Riptide Rex decks effectively.
Yes, I mean they have quite a bit of sea creatures there. I mean they have Sprayfin, they have I guess the Croaker. They have quite a bit of creatures, so for sure they're flexing their versatility.
But that is going to do it for us this evening. I have been Boulevard. Zero has been my co-caster. I have a Discord notification, which I'm worried is someone telling me something important. It is me getting... Okay, yeah, okay. It's me getting told to do exactly what I was already doing, which is signing us off here. Again, a thank you to Runeterra AR for giving us those cool in-depth deck snapshots. Thank you to Zero for casting with me, and to the production crew as well, and to these fine teams that have come out and competed for sport for our entertainment. Zero, do you have anything to say before we say goodnight to everybody on this?
Good World Championship, guys. Good luck, and I hope we are gonna meet at the end of the line.
Are you gonna where are you gonna meet them? Are you playing in the World Championship?
Yes,
too?
I'm the dark horse of the World Championship. No, I'm gonna congrats to them in DMs or on the NTBD chat. You know.
Any Italians that want to make it through to the top 8, you gotta face Zero first as the final boss. We're gonna throw him
Yeah.
in there. It's a surprise, the steel chair. Anyway, that is gonna do it for us. Thank you for watching, everybody. We will be back tomorrow with the EMEA portion, the Aegis Esports Legends of Runeterra League.